Good morning. Please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning. It's good to see everyone here. Welcome to our regularly agended commission meeting for Tuesday, May 14th, 2024. My name is Andy Hunthausen. To my left, Commissioner Tom Rolfe. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Tom's left. Nadine McCarty should be taking care of us today. Thank you, Nadine. To my right, Commissioner Candace Payne. Good morning. And thanks for holding down the fort while we were gone.
Darn right. It's a good thing you got back. I was just about to let things go crazy. So I'm glad you're back.
Thank you. And to Candace's right, Deputy County Attorney Nico Hash. Good morning. And our Chief Administrative Officer, Roger Baltz. Good morning, Mr. Baltz.
Good morning.
There is a sign-in sheet in the front as well as agendas. We'd like everyone to sign in, please, prior to leaving today, so we have a good record of who's attended our public meeting. And we will jump right in with our consent action items. I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Baltz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. You have 3 items on consent today for you to consider. The first one is item 2A, vendor claims report for the week ending May 10, 2024. Staff recommends approval, and Marni Bentley is with us today as usual. Item 2B is resolution 2024-27, declaring county property surplus property, and staff recommends approval of that item. And the last item for you is item 2C, which is letter of support for Treasure State Acres Sewer District's application to the Montana Renewable Resource Grant Program, and staff recommends approval of that as well. And McCauley is with us this morning as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Baltz. Commissioners, any questions about the consent action items? Any questions? All right. Is there any public comment on the consent action items? Any public comment? Any public comment? Hearing none, Commissioners, is there a motion, please?
Mr. Chair, I would move to approve the consent action items to A, B, and C as explained by Mr. Baltz.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the consent action items 2A, B, and C as presented. Further discussion, Commissioners? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is resolution 2024-25 to levy and assess the Lake Home Road Rural Improvement District number 2020-1. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. My name is Jessica Makus, Special Districts Program Coordinator for Lewis and Clark County. Today, you will be holding public hearing to hear comments and objections regarding the final adoption of a resolution to levy and assess an annual special assessment of $92 upon each benefiting property within the Lake Home Road Rural Improvement District. With a total of 14 benefiting properties, a total of $1,288 will be assessed annually to fund maintenance of the RID. The Lake Home RID was created through a citizen-initiated petition in 2020 to improve and maintain Lake Home Road, which is located just off York Road. And you can see that hopefully on your map there. Maintenance provided by this district includes snow removal and sanding as needed, pothole patching, crack sealing, chip sealing, and other maintenance as necessary to preserve the asphalt improvement. The maintenance assessment was set at $47.81 per property per year when the district was created. However, we have seen a big increase in the cost of asphalt maintenance over the last few years. This, combined with the other impacts of inflation, shows a projected budget shortfall for district maintenance. An increase to the assessment will ensure annual maintenance in Lake Home Road RID can be completed as detailed in the resolution that created the district. This is a total increase of $44.19 per property per year. An evening meeting was held with residents to discuss the need for this increase at the East Valley Fire Station on March 13th. A total of 2 attendees came to the meeting. Legal notice of the increase and the public hearing was sent to all benefiting property owners and published in the Helena Independent Record on April 27th and May 4th, 2024. As of yesterday, No written testimony has been received. Staff recommend approval of the resolution to levy and assess the district. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions, commissioners? Any questions? Commissioner Payne?
Jessica, just one question. The two individuals who came to the East Valley Fire Station meeting, were they in support or wildly against it, or what were their comments?
Sure, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Payne. I think with any of these increases, nobody wants a property tax increase for a special assessment. However, when we hold these meetings, what we do is present our budget forecast showing anticipated revenue, anticipated expenditure, and we look at that kind of over a long term, over the next several years, just to kind of get a sense of the financial position of the district. And when presented that way, I think people generally understand the need for it, though not enthused, generally supportive to ensure that maintenance can continue.
And if, say, should lightning strike or something and the actual costs go back down, then do we amend the amount of the assessment at some future? I mean, we have the ability to do that, right?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, yes. So we look at these budgets on an annual basis, and each year have that opportunity to increase those assessments prior to the first Monday of September each year. So just as we present these resolutions to increase an assessment where needed, occasionally we are able to lower assessments if we do see a cash balance growing. These RID funds are not intended to be a savings. They're not intended to build a large cash balance. They're intended to fund the maintenance.
Get the roads fixed.
Exactly, Commissioner.
Thank you, Jessica.
You're welcome.
That seems reasonable.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other questions?
No.
Just to summarize then, the intent of this increase really is to maintain the services that are already existing. So,
Mr. Chair, that's correct.
right. So the costs of those same services, snow plowing, whatever is in the resolution, those have increased. And so this is what it's going to, the best guess of what it's going to cost, best estimate of what it's going to cost to maintain those services over the next coming years.
Mr. Chair, that's correct.
Great. Just simplifying it for people like me. Thank you. Okay. Is there any public comment on this item? Any public comment on this resolution? Any public comment? Okay. Hearing no public comment, commissioners, is there a motion to approve resolution 2024-25?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve resolution 2024-25 to levy and assess the Lake Home Road Rural Improvement District number 2020-1 as presented by Jessica Makus.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the resolution as presented. Further discussion, commissioners? Thank you. I'm just going to say it now. I'll probably say it again here, but I really appreciate the effort that we're taking now, your position and others, Caleb and others that participate in this, really reaching out to the citizens in these rural improvement districts, trying to hold a meeting, trying to explain what the increase, what the reasons for the increase, what their input is on that, and how we might look at it in a different way maybe, or whatever. And it's engaging folks and having them participate is really important. And it's one of the reasons why we probably don't have a large number here today. Even though only a couple showed up, they did get notice. They did get information in the mail about what was coming and all of that. So had an opportunity to engage if they chose to. So thank you for that. All right, commissioners, with that, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. All right, next item on the agenda is resolution 2024-26 to levy and assess the Hahn Road Rural Improvement District number 2023-1.
Okay. Commissioners, again, Jessica Makus, Special Districts Program Coordinator for Lewis and Clark County. Today, you will be holding a public hearing to hear comments and objections regarding the final adoption of a resolution to levy and assess an annual special assessment of $130 upon each benefiting property within the Hahn Road Rural Improvement District. The total of 50 benefiting properties, a total of $6,500 will be assessed annually to fund maintenance of the RID. The Hahn Road RID was created through a citizen-initiated petition in 2023 to improve and maintain Hahn Road from McHugh Drive to North Montana Avenue. Maintenance provided by this district includes snow removal and sanding as needed, grading, gravel maintenance, magnesium chloride application, and asphalt maintenance on the mailbox pullout and apron transition to North Montana Avenue. The maintenance assessment was set at $100 per property per year when the district was created. However, we have seen a big increase in the cost of road grading over the past year. The cost of road grading has just about doubled over the past year. So that's been a significant increase for that service. This, combined with the other impacts of inflation, shows a projected budget shortfall for district maintenance. An increase to the assessment will ensure annual maintenance in Hahn Road RID can be completed as detailed in the resolution that created the district. This is a total increase of $30 per property per year. An evening meeting was held with residents to discuss the need for this increase at the West Valley Fire Station on February 7th, 2024, with a total of 5 attendees. Legal notice of the increase in public hearing was sent to all benefiting property owners and published in the Helena Independent Record on April 27th and May 4th. As of yesterday, no written testimony has been received. Staff recommend approval of the resolution to levy and assess the district. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Any questions, commissioners, at this time? Any questions? Again, just to maintain the level of service that exists, this is what objecting needs to be done. Okay, commissioners, with no questions, how about public comment on this item? Any public comment? Good morning.
Morning. Mr. Chair, Commissioners, my name is Dave Birch, B-U-R-C-H. I've lived out in the Hahn subdivision for 30 plus years. Tried to get this thing going. The road has been a mess for a long, long time. But of course, I'm not here to promote higher taxes, but I do understand the need for that. I've also talked to the 2 major commercial entities out there that are within the last 2 years, 3 years that they've come into business. They are willing to help with the mag chloride to take that off the burden of the rest of the private landowners out there. So that's really good that they're helping us to do that. So if we do need that in the future, we will have that. But I understand the need for the increase, and since it was graded last year, it's been a godsend. The mag chloride's really helped. It's a little muddy, but when it rains, but that's okay. We'll take the mud over the ruts anytime. So, and the holes. About lost my car in one of them. So we're good to go, and appreciate your time and effort. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate you being engaged and working with the business owners in the area as well. Thank you for that. All right. Any further public comment? Further public comment? Further public comment? Okay. Hearing none. Commissioners, there a motion, please?
Mr. Chair, I would move to approve resolution 2024-26 to levy and assess the Hahn Road Rural Improvement District number 2023-1 as explained by Ms. Markus.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the resolution as presented. Further discussion, commissioners?
Just a quick comment. I went out and looked. I drove that road before the work was done, and I've driven it since, and there is a difference. It's a substantial difference. So thanks for your work to get the folks in the neighborhood to support this.
Anything further?
Nope.
Thank you. All right. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is contract amendment number 1 between Lewis and Clark County and JHS Inc. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. My name is Christian Lehnert, and I am the Lewis and Clark County Noxious Weed Coordinator, but here to present on behalf of mosquito districts.
Excuse me. Are you sure you're Christian?
I
I've
am.
never seen you without a hat on.
Just for you, Commissioner Payne.
Just kidding.
Before you this morning is a request to adopt the contract amendment for the Helena Valley Mosquito District. The contract was put in place on May 4th, 2023 into the 3-year professional service contract with JHS Incorporated. Within this amendment, contract line J was added to the scope of services. Just to briefly go over some of those, we added how many complaints were received in the scope of service, how many traps, locations, dates of aerial larvicide control performed, locations, number of watered acres that they perform those duties on, dates of spot applications were performed, locations and number of acres, adulticides performed on Flowery Drive, Merritt Lane, Harmony Lane, Valley Drive, and other locations, to please specify where and how many flight hours. Also within that amendment, we have dates within section 6 that were updated for this year's schedule. Also, I would like to add that we are to highlight the contract amount for the Helena Valley Mosquito District will stay the same for this year as it was last year. And for that, the contract amount for last year and this year for the Helena Valley Mosquito District is $228,550 for the spray season.
Great. Hey, before we take questions, just maybe ask you, just for those that might not know much about this world, kind of just a little more kind of overall what we're doing. So we actually contract for mosquito spraying, flying. Just tell people a little bit about it. It's an opportunity to kind of blow your
Chairman.
horn about what you do and all the good
Yeah.
work that's done by the mosquito district and the weed district.
So I am here to help the mosquito board with contracts and services. For many, many years, the mosquito district has contracted with JHS Incorporated to mitigate mosquitoes within the Helena Valley as well as Craig. They've done an awesome job, and then this is with all of our fun stuff with procurement. So we're now bringing this forward to you to be better out in the open and everybody understand what we got going on. So the mosquito district in the Helena Valley is a very vast, pretty good sized district. It goes all the way from like Scratch Gravel Hills, even up in the Bird's Eye area, all the way out to Lake Helena Drive, and then from Lincoln Highway all the way down to pretty much Highway 12 right along there. So yeah, that's
pretty big
what
district.
this contract or this district represents.
That's great. And I like the deliverables in section J. I mean, it just gives us a little more data.
Yeah.
What we're doing, collecting a little more data each year and all of that. That's good. And like you said, this JHS has been spraying and doing their mitigation efforts for a long time for us.
Yes.
It's been a good contract. So looking forward to supporting this. I hope. Commissioner Payne, questions?
Christian, as you know, I'm the county commissioner that sits on the mosquito boards. And I was there when we were discussing the changes required in this particular contract. And one of the issues that caused quite a bit of heartburn was the section J requirement for deliverables. And I came away from that discussion thinking, deliverables, what the heck is a deliverable? And I sense that part of the the conflict during that meeting had to do with the term deliverables. Is deliverables a commonly used term? It's to me like an acronym. What the heck is a deliverable? Is that like a baby? You deliver a baby, you deliver a pizza.
Yeah, I think that is a pretty common term that we use for deliverables on what we want from a contract. So this is just really asking for a description of all the things that had been performed for us so that we're able to justify the amount of money that we pay somebody and attach those to that. So if our constituents in the county have questions on what we're given $228,550 to, we actually have those deliverables to show what we paid for with those.
Okay.
So
that
a
was-
better description, I guess, is another term that we could to use as a better description or yeah,
yeah,
within the invoice.
I'm just, it caused some, there was confusion there, and I think in the hope of better communication that, and not for this one's fine as it is, but in the future,
Mhm.
if we could use terms that are not specialized to county government, the people on this board
Mhm.
tend to be farmers and ranchers and people out on the land, and a deliverable to them may not be the same thing as a deliverable to Andy Hunthausen. And John Semple, the man who's doing this work, he's been doing it for many years. He's a good, solid citizen. However, he, like many of us, are getting old, and yeah, I just hope we can have a contract that everybody understands. And I appreciate your work on this, and I appreciate the work of the board in coming to a reasonable understanding on this.
Yes.
Those are my comments.
Thanks, Commissioner. Anything else? And underneath the deliverables in J, I mean, everything's described very well. So that's
Yeah.
that's great for what we want to collect and what we want, the data and information we want to make sure that we have for future. So thank you very much for that. All right. Anything else? Okay. How about public comment on this item? What about public comment on this contract? Or it's actually is part of a contract with the way we're describing this contract amendment number 1 between Lewis and Clark County and JHS Inc. as described in on our agenda. Any public comment? All right, hearing none. Commissioners, is there a motion, please?
Mr. Chair, I would move to approve the contract amendment number 1 between Lewis and Clark County and JHS Incorporated, as explained by Mr. Lehnert, with relative to the Helena Valley Mosquito Control District.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the contract amendment as presented. Further discussion, Commissioners? Thank you. Appreciate bringing it forward, and thanks to the Mosquito District Boards. Appreciate that. All right, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a contract amendment number 1 between Lewis and Clark County and JHS Inc. Mr. Lehnert.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, my name is Christian Lehnert. Again, Lewis and Clark County Noxious Weed Coordinator, here to present on behalf of the it got me again, Mosquito Board. For the Craig Mosquito Board. Before you today is a request to adopt amendment for the Craig Mosquito District. The contract was put in place on May 4th, 2023, and is a 3-year professional service contract with JHS Incorporated. Within the amendment contract, line I was added the section 2 subscope services. Line I describes in more detail kind of deliverables within each payment period, specifically as I listed before on the previous contract. It's all the same. Also within the dates within the section, effective date and time of performance of the contract were updated to match this year's schedule. Also would like to highlight in this contract amount that the Craig Mosquito District will also stay the same as it was in 2023, will stay the same as 2024 spray season, which is $16,800. Staff recommends approval of the amendment.
Questions, commissioners?
Uh,
Commissioner
I have
Payne?
a question. Thank you, Chairman. I'm looking at the two contracts, and of course, I noticed that the amended paragraph J in the Helena Valley one and are amending paragraph I in the Craig District,
Mhm.
which means there's something different. Could you explain to us the difference in the two contracts?
Yes, and the Helena Valley has additional scope of service in the main contract than Craig does. So that's why you have I and J in there, but the scope of service, the amendments are the exact same within each of, I know the line items are different, but they're the same.
Just to.
I don't have the full contract in front of me
I do.
okay.
And looks to me that the Helena Valley has a paragraph F, which includes spot aerial applications totaling 20 to 75 acres will assist ground cruises. So that one is different. That's where the change in them is. It is a specific difference. It's not an accident. Nobody messed up on the lettering.
Thanks,
Yes, Commissioner Chair.
Any other comments?
None.
Is there any public comment on this amended contract? Any public comment? All right, hearing none. Commissioners, is there a motion, please?
Mr. Chair, I would move to approve contract amendment number 1 between Lewis and Clark County and JHS Incorporated as explained by Mr. Lehnert with reference to the Craig Mosquito Control District.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve contract amendment number 1 between Lewis, Clark County and JHS Inc. as presented. Further discussion, commissioners? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Lynn. Next item on the agenda is a memorandum of agreement between Lewis and Clark County and the Montana Department of Environmental Quality. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, Dan Carlin, County Engineer. This memorandum of agreement is between Lewis and Clark County and the Montana Department of Environmental Quality, or DEQ, to coordinate and support remedial efforts associated with the Upper Blackfoot Mining Complex acid mine water treatment plant and relocating the underground power line for the water treatment plant facility. Lewis and Clark County will apply for a Montana Department of Natural Resources, or DNRC, Resource Development Grant, or RDG, in the amount of $487,165.80 to relocate the water treatment plant underground power line from Mike Horse Road, a primitive county road, to Meadow Creek Road. The Montana Custodial Environmental Trust, in coordination with Montana DEQ and the U.S. Forest Service, has jurisdiction over Meadow Creek Road. To the extent that Lewis and Clark County is awarded the grant, this agreement outlines roles and responsibilities. Number 1, DEQ will facilitate the grant startup requirements with DNRC and Northwestern Energy. 2, Lewis and Clark County agrees to reimburse DEQ with the grant funds if received for the oversight, grant reporting, and Northwestern energy costs associated with relocating the water treatment plant underground power line. And finally, DEQ will reimburse Lewis and Clark County for any administrative costs associated with the implementation of this grant out of a separate DEQ funding source entirely separate from the grant. In the event that costs of the project exceed the grant amount, the MOA clearly states that the county is not responsible and is not obligated to pay any costs above the grant amount awarded. DEQ will solely be responsible for any cost overruns. The term of the agreement will remain in effect until the grant funding is exhausted and the project is complete. However, the agreement will automatically terminate if the grant is not awarded. Staff recommends approval of the memorandum of agreement between Lewis and Clark County and the Montana Department of Environmental Quality to coordinate and support remedial efforts associated with the water treatment plant and relocating the underground power line for the water treatment plant. That was a whole lot. And
Yeah,
I
that
do
was.
have, I just want to point out, I do have a second agenda item that is the actual grant portion of that, which has a lot more detail we can get into. This is the pre-agreement that establishes kind of the roles and responsibilities. So we're comfortable with submitting the grant.
Right. I'll just ask you this then, Mr. Carlin, and that is that this is part of a long process, many, many years of the Makus mine cleanup and water treatment plant and the roads and access up there. All of this has been a long running partnership, I guess, Forest Service, Environmental Cleanup, State of Montana, DEQ, and Lewis and Clark County, in that Makus Road was main access for this area for quite a while. There is this other road now that will become the main access, and we will no longer be responsible for that access route. And this power line and all of that is part of the overall functionality of the mine waste cleanup and water purification process that they're putting in place for the long term up there. So anyway, I just want people to understand that it's been a really long-term process. This is one piece of the puzzle that we're participating in here. It's toward the end of the line, which is great, and probably toward the end of our involvement, but which we've been hopeful for a long time. But anyway, just speak to that as it's kind of been part of the bigger picture overall.
Certainly, Mr. Chair, Commissioner. So this is a pretty old mine. Its primary access historically has been Makus Road. That's a difficult road to maintain, primarily due to the creek that traverses through that area frequently. There's a lot of marsh, there's a lot of wetland area. When high flows happen, it blows the road out very quickly. So that's a problem. The power line itself is actually buried within that road. So every time something like that happens, the power line's exposed, jeopardizing its integrity, which is really not ideal when we have a water treatment plant that depends on that power to process that water and clean it up. We'll get into it a little bit more in the next one, but a lot of the focus up there for a variety of different groups, Forest Service, DEQ, is that water quality. So that stream it's the home of native bull trout, I believe. Bull trout and West Slope cutthroat. The West Slope cutthroat were not able to survive in that stream until this water treatment plant facility started operating. So that was a big focus, and it's pretty amazing. It's just good stewardship up there. This Meadow Creek Road is built by the Forest Service. It's a very good, solid road. It's built in a different location other than down in the valley portion of that. So it doesn't have the same hazards jeopardizing it. So it's a lot easier to maintain that in all conditions. Even if there is a large flood, that road is in great shape. It's going to be up and above anything that could possibly impact it. So it's pretty exciting. It also will reduce county maintenance hours and resources, gravel, blows culverts out every time. So very helpful in that regard. I do want to point out we don't have any intention of abandoning that road, closing that road, but we will not perform routine maintenance on it. So.
Thank you, Mr. Carlin. Questions for Mr. Brown? Commissioner Brown?
Just if I understand it correctly, that there's a new road that's less apt to be washed out, and that it means that you're changing the position of the power source for the water treatment plant.
Mr. Chair.
The water treatment plant is still in the same place.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Rolfe, yes. So I do have a nice visual for that. Maybe I'll just put that up now. That should help a little bit with what we're talking about here. Actually, I think I want the other one. This one's a little better. So if you look at your screen there, we have the existing power line and Mike Horse Road is right here. This is Mike Horse Road and right through here. So this over here is Meadow Creek Road. You can see this blue area is the part that floods and gets pretty crazy. We have to rebuild all of that when something happens. The water treatment facility is right here. It's pointed out on that nice note there. So that kind of, hopefully that helps orient where all of these features are.
Dan, could you show the previous slide?
Yes. This one. Thank you. Other one. This one.
They're both good.
Good. Okay. Other questions? Commissioners?
And I'm assuming there, there's also a test facility at where the tailings are now, but they're not part of this change that is being made.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Rolfe, I don't know the answer to that question. I do have some guests with us that will certainly be able to answer that question. If you wouldn't mind holding that one until and addressing that in the next agenda item, they definitely have more to share, I'm sure.
Okay,
Great.
great.
All right. Any further questions, commissioners, about this memorandum of agreement? How about public comment on this item? Public comment. Any public comment? All right, commissioners, is there a motion to approve this memorandum of agreement between Lewis and Clark County and the Department of Environmental Quality?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the memorandum of agreement between Lewis and Clark County and the Montana Department of Environmental Quality as presented by Dan Carlin.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the memorandum of agreement as presented. Further discussion, commissioners? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a grant application to the Montana Department of Natural Resources and Conservation. Mr. Carlin.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Again, Dan Carlin, County Engineer for the record. The Montana Department of Natural Resources and Conservation Reclamation and Development Grants, or RDG program, is a state-funded program designed to fund projects that protect Montana citizens from the effects of mineral development on public resources and that meet other crucial state needs, serve the public interest, and benefit the total environment of the people of Montana. Lewis and Clark County, in partnership and through a memorandum of agreement with DEQ, is requesting to submit a grant application to coordinate and support remedial efforts associated with the Upper Blackfoot Mining Complex, acid mine water treatment plant, and relocating the underground power line for the water treatment plant facility. Total grant amount requested is $487,165.80, including a 10% contingency. No match is required, and DEQ and Lewis and Clark County will provide in-kind staff support for the project. DEQ will fully reimburse Lewis and Clark County administrative and in-kind support after project completion from a separate DEQ funding source outside of the grant award. There will be no cost to Lewis and Clark County, and any project overruns will be borne solely by DEQ. The grant application due date is May 15th. Upon receipt of the grant application, Montana DNRC evaluates and ranks each grant application and forwards recommendations to the governor's office before each regular legislative session. The legislature makes final decision on which projects will be funded. Letters of support for this project have been provided by the U.S. Fish Wildlife Services, Big Blackfoot Chapter of Trout Unlimited, Montana Natural Resource Damage Program, Blackfoot Challenge, Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, and the Lincoln Valley Chamber of Commerce. Staff recommends approval of the grant application to the Montana Department of Natural Resources and Conservation Reclamation and Development Grants Program in the amount of $487,165.80 and authorizes the chair to sign all applicable documents. And I do have another visual we haven't looked at yet.
Great.
So I did mention in the prior item that it does blow the road out, and you can see here what happens when we get a good flow through there. That is the road that is no longer passable. I took the culvert right out. You can see the creek next to it. And I do have, like I mentioned, I do have some guests with us. I have Kevin Stone. He's from the Federal Superfund site. Amber Nichols from DEQ, who prepared a good portion of this grant application, is working from the state side of this. And then we also have Nate Hagan from Pioneer Technical Services, who has been the project manager and their consultant engineer, and I believe the engineer of record on this whole process. So if you have specific questions, I know Nate's worked a tremendous amount on this. They actually have rerouted the road, they've rebuilt the stream. A lot of different things have gone on here to make all this possible with pretty decent expenditure of dollars, but also a very nice benefit. So.
Great, thank you, Mr. Carlin. And I know that this is one, like I said, one piece of the puzzle over a long period of time and a lot of work being done up there, but it'd be great to have help the public understand the bigger picture. So I would invite our guests to come on up, please. And if you'd introduce yourself for the record, and then if you can just give us a more broad picture of what's happened, how things are going, and what the public might be interested in.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I'm Nate Hagan. I'm the engineer of record for the overall Upper Blackfoot Mining Complex project, which is spanned probably over, well, the better part of 3 decades is when the work started. Maybe just a brief background. The project was financed by a bankruptcy settlement with a Sarco. The project overall has cost about $42 million. And maybe to address the commissioner's question, the project just very generally picked up mine waste from what you see around the blue lines. The overall construction took roughly 10 years. It picked up the mine waste. It moved it southwest down Highway 200 and then southeast down, can you point to this right here? Southeast to the repository. Repository is just a fancy word for, it's built similar to a landfill. It's high and dry, up above the water. It's sealed from the top and bottom so that no water can get into it. And its intent is to stabilize all of that mine waste for the long term. Overall, the contaminants of concern that were being removed were lead, arsenic, manganese, and zinc. And I don't know what else to say. That's maybe the brief version.
Yeah.
If you have specific questions.
Mr. Payne.
What is UBMC?
Oh, sorry. UBMC is just an abbreviation for the Upper Blackfoot Mining Complex. It's a term for the mine that created all the damages, that Makus mine area on the kind of on the south side here of the blue line. But there was an overall complex. There's hundreds of, well, maybe not hundreds. There's probably like 50 mining claims.
I don't have problems with the mining claim. I have trouble with acronyms. So
Okay, sorry.
UBMC,
Apologies.
thank you.
This is what happens when you work on something too long.
Thank you. Any other input from our guests? If you'd introduce yourself for the record and your.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. My name is Amber Nichols. I am a project manager for this site with the Montana Department of Environmental Quality. I was brought onto this project just a couple of months ago, so I've been working with the senior project manager, Dave Bowers, to get acquainted with this site, and this grant is my first foray into the UBMC project. So I'm happy to answer any questions you have, and with my technical help here as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome. Yes, sir.
Mr. Commissioner Mr. Chair and Commissioners, my name is Kevin Stone. I'm the Federal Superfund Section Supervisor at DEQ. So I manage our project managers, including the 2 who work on this project. I want to thank you for having us today. As you mentioned, this has been a long-running partnership to do the great work up at the Upper Blackfoot Mining Complex, including the county, the State Natural Resource Damage Program, the U.S. Forest Service, and others. And in order to sort of preserve, a lot of the great work that's been done, Nate talked about those mine tailings removals. There will be a need to treat acid mine drainage at this location likely into perpetuity. And that's the importance of power access to that water treatment plant. It risks, road washouts, risk power access to that site. It's not consistently, you would then be relying on auxiliary power, which has its own concerns, especially for the running for the long term. And that's important to maintain the good work that has been done. Those downstreams, as Mr. Carlin mentioned, we've seen fish return to these streams. We want to maintain that good work by continuing a reliable water treatment system that will be an important aspect of maintaining that remediation at the location term. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And yes, it's a good to point out these streams are a chunk of the headwaters of the Blackfoot River. So there's many that come out of here. This is close to the divide and the start of the Blackfoot River. Mr. Carlin, anything you want to add?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I don't think so. I know we have today's the 14th and this is due tomorrow. So I have quite a bit of printing to do to get this submitted
So hurry up.
between
is
now
what
and
you're
then.
saying, huh?
Not saying hurry. I just, they definitely did the heavy lift on this. The DEQ team with their consultant, they pulled all this together and we get the pleasure of submitting it. So, yes, very much help and thank you to them and their team.
Yes, and I was going to do the same. Thank you for being here today. And thank you for the partnership. This is an opportunity to really advance this this piece of the project anyway, and make sure that it is viable long-term versus repairing it every time we have a high water. So commissioners, any further questions? Please, Commissioner.
If I might, I guess I remember back in the 90s when a lot of this stuff was rolling. I guess my assumption was it was pretty much a project of the super farm cleanup, a federal project, and that our local or our state DNRC or DEQ were involved in it. I didn't realize that the county was involved in any of that. And I'm sure you probably already checked with the county attorney's office. Does it create any long-term potential liability for the county for us to be involved in something like this?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, so when we first contemplated this power line move, and the associated kind of redirection of primary traffic to Meadow Creek Road, which has actually happened kind of organically, the discussion at that point was we should abandon this road and move to Meadow Creek Road. We were advised, and there was some back and forths with the community that we just really shouldn't do that. There's some other properties that can be accessed from Makus Mine Road. Primarily, if you come in on Meadow Creek and then backtrack a little bit, it's a lot more stable in that area as opposed to further to the west on Makus Road. You can see it in yellow there really well. That whole marsh area gets kind of blown out, and then there's kind of where the angle on the Makus Mine Road label is. There's another drainage that comes down there that blows it out really bad right through there too. But if we maintain the access from the east end of that, it's a lot easier to maintain. So that was part of the conversation with the attorney's office was we really shouldn't abandon this road. We need to maintain that access. Once that was established, it was a lot easier to move forward through this. I also want to point out one of the design features that they put into this is where Makus Mine Road crosses Anaconda Creek there. They put in a very robust ford is really the right word for it. There's a lot of stabilized rock, things of that nature. So the road actually dips down to the creek as opposed to a bridge or a culvert. And then that's reinforced and hardened, I guess is the right word. So a person can drive through the creek. And that's, from what I understand, is pretty darn stable and isn't going to go anywhere for a long darn time. So we shouldn't have to fight the issue of the creek blowing out the road itself, or Anaconda Creek at that crossing. The other places where we get that spring runoff, things of that nature that blow the road out through the entire remainder of the road will still be an issue. But by moving primary traffic to Meadow Creek Road, we won't have to fight that anymore. So as far as liability to the county goes, I'm not aware of any issues that would continue into the future. We're going to maintain that access from the east so people can still access their properties. And then again, Meadow Creek Road is very stable and the Forest Service is going to maintain that for as long as I'll be around anyway, so.
If I might ask Mr. Hash the same question. Is there any, by becoming involved in this, are we creating any long-term liability for our county?
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, so I think we've talked, the county's been involved up here for a long time anyway. And specific to this project, Dan can correct me where I go wrong here, but it's more operating as like a pass-through process in which the county's not going to be doing really any of the work besides administratively handling it.
So it
So-
really isn't new that we're getting involved in it. It's just that I didn't realize that
Yeah.
we'd been involved in it.
This is,
Okay.
I think we said it before, a continuation of the partnership that we've been a part of for quite some time.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And I might add that likely by not relying on this section of My Course Mine Road, we probably reduce the likelihood of problems. I mean, that's the whole point of the project, is that we're moving to the Meadow Creek Road, which is for the most part out of the flood area or the issues where we have washouts, where My Course would be an ongoing issue that we would have to tend to over and over again. And county's involvement in that is larger than potentially than Meadow Creek Road over time. So yeah, it's probably better for us in the long, I would say. It's my guesstimation. How about
Mr.
that?
Chair, I would say that's appropriate. It's long-term, this is going to be a lot stronger, manageable solution.
Yes. Thank you. Any other questions, commissioners? Any other?
I have a
comments?
question.
Commissioner Payne.
Dan, you have this May 15th grant application due date. Who set that deadline?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Payne, that would be the RDG program.
Come on, help me. RD.
Rural Development Grants Program. So that's who we're submitting
that
it
through
to
the
at
DNRC?
DNRC. Yeah.
Is there anybody here from the DNRC? So they get to draw the line in the sand and then you jump around and do the best you can.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Payne, that's the nature of grants, is they
all have
they set the
deadlines.
rules and we jump through the hoops.
How long have you known about this particular deadline?
So, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Payne, I would say a month and a half ago was about when we got fired up and going down the path. The issue we ran into, we actually were prepared to present this last week, but as we all know,
Oh,
there were not
the
meetings.
boys
this
were off
week. So
playing.
we weren't able to present it then, and we said, we can make this happen.
All right.
We'll just do it on the 14th and then we'll get her done.
That's fine. I just don't want our folks being mistreated. So looking out for you, Dan.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Carlin. Any public comment on this item? Any further public comment on this item? Any public comment? All right, hearing none. Commissioners, is there a motion to approve this grant application to DNRC as presented?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the grant application to the Montana Department of Natural Resources and Conservation as presented by Mr. Carlin.
Second,
Moved and seconded to approve the grant application as presented. Further discussion, commissioners? Just like to thank all of you for being here. Appreciate the partnership and explanation as we move forward. All right, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, next item on the agenda is a contract between Lewis and Clark Public Health and Peerview Health Center. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission. I'm Sarah Sandow, the Community Health Promotion Division Administrator for Lewis and Clark Public Health. Today, I have before you a contract with Peerview Health Center in the amount of $195,926 through the Human Resources Services Administration contract to implement the Mobile Unit Substance Use Prevention Program. You approved that contract back in the early fall. The contract with Peerview Health Center is for the date signed till June 30th, 2027. Through the Human Resources and Services Administration grant, Lewis and Clark Public Health plans to pilot a mobile clinic to reach residents of Lewis and Clark County with current community services, including HIV, sexually transmitted infection testing, opioid overdose prevention medication and education, substance use prevention education, behavioral health screening, and other community resources and referrals. This mobile unit has the potential to include additional services that may or may not exist already in our county. The intent is to bring services and provide easier access for low-income families, minorities, underserved, and rural community members. We posted a request for a proposal in the winter to find a clinic to run this unit. Peerview Health Center was the chosen provider. They will staff the mobile unit with a mix of medical providers, licensed clinic social workers, behavioral health coordinator, mental health counselor, case manager, nurses, peer support specialists, all as determined by their service delivery plan and what they're doing on that event. In year one, which is today through June 30th, they'll have at least 2 events using this mobile clinic. In year 2, starting July through the following June, they'll have a minimum of 12 events. 6 of those must be outside of the Helena city limits. So that could be just the Valley, or that could all be Lincoln, Augusta, Wolf Creek, Marysville. Year 3, they'll have a minimum of 10 events. 5 of those must be outside of the Helena city limits. And year 4, a minimum of 6 events. 3 of those must be outside of the Helena city limits. They'll have open houses and community charrettes, which is just a fun way to say how we gain community input, make sure that people know about what this clinic offers, what we can do with it, what the potential is, get feedback, see if there's things we need to change along the way so that we're doing quality improvement along the way. We have staff from Peerview Health Center as well to show their support, as well as Lewis and Clark Public Health staff here. And we are here to answer any questions, and we recommend approval.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the good explanation. Questions, commissioners? Any questions?
I just am curious. So we're talking about a mobile health. This is so you take this service to Wolf Creek or Craig or wherever. You have a bus or a car, or how do you move this around?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioner, that's a great question. So we bought a van during COVID with some COVID funds that was specifically for COVID immunizations and immunizations. So we already had the van that is drivable to wherever you go. And now it's nicely wrapped and very beautiful if you ever come into our Murray building parking lot. So it's that vehicle that will be used. Peerview Health Center will be able to use it, be able to take these services and go to those rural areas. The goal is substance use prevention, but we know that to destigmatize, we're going to include other things as well. So we'll include immunizations, or we'll include other education so that we make sure that we are able to offer what services maybe that area needs, with the goal of this grant being substance use prevention.
Another question, please. In Augusta, they've recently had the lady who has been running the Augusta Health, I think she's called the county health nurse or something on that order. And she has forsaken them. She has retired. And so will this do the kinds of things that the services that she has provided traditionally? That's what this is aimed at?
Thank you. This will help fill a part of the gap. That is a huge gap that's being left in that community. So this will help fill part of it. And then I know that our immunization nurses at Public Health will be filling other components that she was filling as well. So this will be part of the plan to fill that gap.
Do they do things like well baby checks?
Not currently in the van, but that can be something that through this public community charrettes, that if the community is saying we need this, then we can work as a group to figure out how to solve that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Other questions, Commissioner?
If I might, I see we've also got a similar contract, maybe for some slightly different services with St. Pete's. Can you give me an estimate of the number of people we serve through Purview versus the number of people we serve through St. Pete's?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioner. So that's a good question about first, just the difference between the two. So this mobile clinic will, really focus on substance use prevention. So how can we, intervene? How can we prevent? How can we provide resources? And then our mobile crisis response team, is crisis response. So really helping someone in their home or where they are, be able to respond to a mental health crisis. And that will continue to be run through St. Pete's, which, like you said, is the next agenda item. So this Peerview Health Center is a pilot. So this is the first time we're running it. So at this point, they do their own outreach, of course, Peerview Health Center, and they can answer those questions. But through this van, this is a new partnership. So through this first year, they're going to be reporting on their numbers served, our goal numbers, numbers in different communities. So I would say to be determined for the Peerview Health Center. And then I'd be happy to bring up someone who might be able to answer about the number served from Mobile Crisis Response Team, if that'd be helpful.
I just want to clarify one
Yeah.
thing, because
Yes.
I thought about that too, as I was reading these. It could be confusing for folks. This mobile clinic is a mobile health clinic, and its main
Mhm.
focus is substance abuse. Will have other features as you described, and then through the vignettes will even may have other features as described. Then the next one that we have on our agenda is
Yes.
our mobile crisis response team. They're totally different things, but you look at, the mobile part, and it's like, oh, we're doing two contracts with the same thing, but we're not. So I just wanted to make
Yes.
sure that it was confusing for me when I first read it. So I just want to
agree.
make sure we clarify.
And I think maybe that was my
Yeah.
confusion too.
We
Yeah,
need to come up with new names, I think, because they're too similar.
it's okay.
too.
They both are mobile, so
they're
that's all
mobile.
right. But one is a mobile clinic, health clinic, and the other is
Yeah.
the mobile crisis response team.
Exactly.
Award. So just want to make sure. So we're talking about the mobile health clinic right now,
Mhm.
and partnership with Peerview to provide that service in our rural settings and around the valley here as well. Okay, commissioners, further questions?
No, I think.
And maybe we could have Peerview come up and join us, and just introduce yourself for the record if you would, and then what you see happening here with this potential.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Nick Griffith. I'm the Risk Management and Compliance Director for Peerview Health Center, and was the lead on both in co-development of the grant with the county and this RFP. So really our goal here is that we see a lot of folks who suffers from substance use, and then also kind of see that compounding factor that it can lead to in their lives, in particular in health. And when we found out about this opportunity, we realized that this was a chance for us to decentralize those services from Helena. We have both sites, as you know, and the site in Lincoln. But now we have the opportunity to be able to take this to folks in Augusta, to even go up to Lincoln and expand the amount of time we might be able to have with folks. But really what we also see this as is an opportunity to partner with other folks in the county who are providing these services, whether they be residential, transitional, nonprofit support, kind of anything like that. We now can go directly to folks, so they don't have to find transportation. They don't have to figure out exactly where we are, schedule that kind of an appointment. So initially, as Sarah said, it'll be fairly focused on substance use, but we really do see this scalable to be able to provide almost any service we can in clinic via telecommunication with telehealth or referral services with our partners in the community. We have Dr. Madeline Turner, who's our medical director and a lead on this, has done this kind of work in other states and is the lead in addiction medicine, not only in our county, but in the state of Montana. So we're pretty confident that we've put together a strong program that we'll see some great results from.
Great, thank you very
Thanks.
much. Any questions, commissioners? Thank you very much. How about public comment on this item? Public comment? Any public comment? Okay, commissioners, how about a motion?
Mr. Chair, I would move to accept the contract approve the contract between Lewis and Clark Public Health and Peerview Health Center as explained by Ms. Sandow.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the contract as presented. Further discussion, commissioners? Please.
I really appreciate the comments from the gentleman from Peerview, because that certainly broadens my understanding of what this is. This appears to be a wonderful opportunity to help serve some of the underserved that live in Lewis and Clark County, which is bigger than just Helena. And I'm just, what a great experiment, and I hope it works well. And I'm glad we're doing this.
Anything else? And I just want to say thank you to you, Sarah, because even though some of these are confusing, sometimes they're new things that we haven't seen before, whatever, you have been doing a great job lately of reaching out to us individually as commissioners and asking if we have any questions prior to the date of coming here. And we have opportunity to really talk about these with you if we choose. So thank you for that. And I encourage commissioners to take advantage of those opportunities as Sarah reaches out. So I'm assuming you'll do that in the future. I appreciate that because a lot of my questions get answered if I need to visit with you. So thank you.
One other comment.
Please.
It is also beneficial to us. We go out, we're in the grocery store. Somebody comes up and says, I've got a grandson that needs, and I don't know what, and it's very helpful to say, oh, and we can give them some guidance. People communicate with us, at least they do with me. They come up, they talk to me. I don't know who they are, but they know who I am and they expect me to have some kind of help. And so this is really benefits all of us. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. Okay, with that, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is contract between Lewis and Clark Public Health and St. Peter's Health. Please.
Hey, good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. I'm Sarah Sandell from Lewis and Clark Public Health, the Community Health Promotion Division Administrator. Today, I have before you a contract with St. Peter's Health in the amount of $477,965 through the Bureau of Justice Administration for the Connect and Protect Law Enforcement Behavioral Health Response contract that you all saw back in November. The contract is from the date signed till September 30th, 2026. The first year of this grant will be a planning year to enhance and expand our mobile crisis response team services. Years 2 and 3 will be implementing whatever changes that comes from this first year. Our mobile crisis response team has been active since November 2020, with St. Peter's being the provider. The team responds in a co-response model with law enforcement, meaning when law enforcement has a behavioral health coded call, they call in the mobile crisis response team to respond in tandem. This provides law enforcement on-scene behavioral health specialist support and applied behavioral health de-escalation. For the past 3 years, we've had to secure and advocate for a mix of funding to support this program. This funding opportunity will help fill some specific funding and implementation gaps, such as responding to the detention center and building community partnerships. So this grant will fund aspects that are not connected to billing. So, going to the detention center, they can't bill for that currently. Be it building those community partnerships, talking to the schools, coming to meetings like this, going to planning meetings, they can't bill for that. So this will help fill some of those gaps for the next 3 years. Staff recommends approval, and I do have staff here as well as mobile crisis response team support here as well. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Questions, commissioners? St. Peter's is here. Love to engage with you. It's an opportunity from my perspective that people watch this and wonder what the heck is our mobile crisis response team. Come on up. And what do we do and how are we doing it? So just a brief little bit and about our partnership. And if you'd introduce yourself for the record, that would be grand, and welcome.
Good morning, chairs and commissioners. I am Gianluca Pisciarelli, Program Director of Behavioral Health Unit and Mobile Crisis Unit. I can spell my name, which is GIANLLUCAPISCIARELLI.
Wow, thank you for doing it.
I have with me also Jeanette Clark, which is one of the mobile crisis.
A little closer so it's Mike.
Yeah.
We're on the mic.
Good morning. Thank you.
Good
Mr.
morning.
Chair,
Yep,
Commissioner.
jump right up there.
Can you hear us all right?
Yeah, but we're recording it and people are on TV too. So the closer you get to the mic, the better everyone can hear. So
Gotcha.
you bet. Go ahead.
Okay, so the Mobile Crisis Unit, as we said, is a program that started in November 2020. And we are running that program successfully side by side with law enforcement since November 2020. Definitely the feedback and the satisfaction from the law enforcement it's very high. We are trying to improve that collaboration and cooperation day by day, dealing with everything presented to us so far, with COVID, human resource issue, funds, problems, and and the logistic of running a unit, which is very complicated to unit in the community.
Yes.
But with wonderful therapists for sure. Again, we respond to the to mental health calls side by side with the law enforcement in Lewis and Clark County, and we try to prevent any unjustified or unnecessary admission or visit to the emergency department. So this cooperation reduce for sure the time that law enforcement has to spend in the community with a population that are definitely not criminals, but are experiencing a very hard time in their life. And this will also reduce, again, visit to the emergency department for patient clients and community members that can be definitely released and discharged in the community with appropriate discharge plan done by, again, wonderful professionals.
Thank you very much. Anything further?
I'm Jeanette Clark. I'm a mobile crisis response therapist with St. Peter's Health. So I work in the community. As John Luca was telling you, do you want me to spell my name? It's Janette, Clark, without an E. We do work a lot with law enforcement, and they do rely on us heavily. And we do a lot of teleconsultation as well. So dispatch can have us patch us in to phone calls so they don't have to respond when law enforcement's pretty busy. And also once they clear our safety, we do a lot of work with them in the community that way. It's not just us evaluating whether their crisis and their mental health state, it's resources. We pile ourselves with tons of resources. St. Peter's, whatever they have, Pureview, Helena Indian Alliance, we work strongly within the community. And so expanding it would help us have more time when we are busy responding to calls for services to outreach and network and give us a stronger resource base to help people, because our job is to keep them out of a hospital or an institution and teach them to be strong and safe in the community. So that's a goal we have, and we've worked with you guys for so long and it's been amazing. So we hope to keep this momentum going and see this team grow. Thank you
So much. Thank you very much. Questions, Commissioner?
Yes, this is an exciting project that we're working on with you, and I really appreciate what you're doing. I think we're kind of on the cutting edge, really, and what's going on nationwide in this regard. And can you give me an idea, give the public an idea of how long you've been fully operational and to fully staffed to do this project?
Yes, we start the program in November 2020, and we had difficult time fully staffing the unit for sure. It is a recruitment process that go through several complications sometimes, including the finding the appropriate candidate for to cover position like the mobile crisis therapist. But we are now fully staffed with 4 full-time person and 1 per diem position. So we are trying to cover 24/7. Definitely the area of Lewis and Clark, excluding sometime medical leave and call off where really.
And a follow-up, if I might, are you in a position to maybe give us some kind of statistics on numbers of people that you're working with? I know we've got some of that on our website, but get rough ideas of numbers of people for the public to hear.
Chair, Commissioner, yes, we do run monthly data for the call that we receive from dispatch, and I would say that we respond to an average of 80 calls per month, which is roughly 1,000 calls per year, and definitely it is a number can be higher. Again, but we do have only 1 person on shift. 24/7. So that person will need during their day routine to prioritize the call. So but again, it's just one person on shift.
Well, we were anxious to kind of follow up and want to be encouraging for what you're doing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah,
I-
Commissioner.
I'm kind of new here and so I need some, is this kind of a project going on in other places? Do you have other entities like this that you can call up and say, what do we do? Or are you the only one or is there others out there?
Well, in Lewis and Clark, yes, we are. We
I-
are the only one, but there are other program, other mobile crisis therapist unit in different cities, like Bozeman, Missoula, Billings, and we do have monthly meeting with them where we confront each other, trying to go through common problems and challenges. And yes, we are in communication too, and we are trying also to get to establish a net of communication live. What I'm trying to say is when they are operating, they can be in communication. Each program can be in communication. And the reason why is because we did receive, our staff members sometimes receive calls from Billings. So it would be a little bit difficult to respond to Billings. So I brought that situation up to our meeting with other programs. And since then, we are trying to look for a possibility to get in communication. So so the team in the specific city where the call is coming from can intervene very, very quick.
Okay.
Sorry.
And then one more, you mentioned there's 80 calls per month, I believe is what you said. How much of that is repeat people who need the help in a repeat? I mean, do they call you once a week or twice a day? Or I bet you can answer this.
Yeah, I can answer that for you. We probably get, I'm gonna say about 25% are repeats. Now, that's actually quite a bit, but they call a lot. And when they're going through crisis,
They need help.
they need help. And every time they call, if it's 3 different hours throughout the day and night, we're there. And it does work because they will go through moments where they can have, but they're turning to us instead of calling 911 constantly to have law enforcement respond. And we also do, these are dispatch numbers. So we also help in our clinics and hospitals, or, even sometimes with Pureview, they can get us directly. And then there's not necessarily a strong law enforcement present there, but it's safe. So I'd say a lot of repeat offenders sorry, a lot of repeat users.
Yeah.
And that's good. It's good because that's what we're here for, is to deter the use of those other resources that are costly, especially with Medicaid recipients. So.
And I sense that you've developed a sense of trust between what you guys provide and what is needed. These individuals, their grandma isn't here to call. So they can call you. They know they're not going to get yelled at or told it's all in their head and they need to get their act together. So, wow.
In a kinder way, we try to tell them that.
Well, that's what
more
grandma's-
therapeutic way.
That's right.
But basically try to get them to utilize their resources in the community and us, because we are always there.
And recognize there's hope.
Mhm.
We can work through this. Suicide is very final.
Yeah.
So,
And crisis is isolating, so.
yes, absolutely. So, thank you.
Thank you,
you.
Commissioner. I really appreciate it. The education is very good. As you can see, some of us have more exposure to this than others, and some of us have been around longer than others. And it's the same for the people who are probably watching today or may watch this. So it's always good, and I thank you. So we will move on here. and really appreciate you coming up and participating and helping us understand the picture. So further questions, commissioners, for our staff or anyone else? How about public comment, further public comment on this item? Please come forward. You can both
You can.
sit down if you like. If we have further questions, we'll call you back up. Thank you for being here.
Good morning,
Yes.
Commissioners. Again, Nick Griffith with Peerview Health Center. And just as we were mentioned, I'm our risk manager as well. So my job is both patient and staff safety on a regular basis. And oftentimes when we have folks who are facing crisis like this, my staff is very reticent to involve law enforcement or a higher authority because we know what that means. Involvement with law enforcement significantly changes the course of someone's life or can significantly change the course of treatment that they may need. And the availability of the mobile crisis team and the ubiquity with which they communicate with us, that they maintain these partnerships, also keeps my staff safe and folks internal to our clinic safe. Because in that moment, we realize we have an opportunity to bring in some other folks who can de-escalate, who can help, who can meet folks where they're at, instead of necessarily bringing in something that could be a little bit more stress causing. And so my teams now feel more comfortable being in those crisis moments and being supportive and engaged because they know that there are resources out there they can rely on. So as a partner, we are incredibly appreciative. As a member of the community, we see the impact it can do, but also as somebody who's responsible for safety in our organization, it makes a massive difference for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your public comment. Any further public comment today? Any further public comment? Okay, hearing none. Commissioners, how about a motion?
Mr. Chair, I would move to accept the grant, approve the grant award to Lewis and Clark Public Health. I'm sorry.
What number
I'm
10?
sorry, to accept the contract between Lewis and Clark Public Health and St. Peter's Health, as explained by Ms. Sandow and these good folks from St. Peter's.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the contract between Lewis and Clark Public Health and St. Peter's Health as presented. Further discussion, commissioners? I do, just very quickly. I just appreciate some of the history and some of what you do. This has been a long history. Talk about 2020. We've tried to have crisis response teams. It's mobile crisis response, a little different model, but it is best practices. Commissioner, you brought that up other places across the country. It is a key factor in our crisis continuum of care, and it is really important to have in our community. Lewis and Clark County has been participatory for years, as long as I've been here, trying to have some level of crisis response and somebody on, usually with the community mental health center. And it has been hit and miss, very challenging to have a 24/7 operation, very expensive. It's always been underfunded, understaffed, and very difficult. And this iteration with St. Peter's Health has been the best I've seen. This is my 18th year as commissioner. And it has been, even though it's the funding since 2020 has been challenging, it's been the best funded, and now more opportunity. It's really the powers that provide the grant dollars are recognizing this as an important factor in the continuum of care, and it, rather than being nominally funded, it is starting to be a best practice and funded as such. But with that said, I'd like to say thank you to St. Peter's, because as we went through this, and Jolene knows this well, we've been working hard to try and get this off the ground. It has taken a lot, and it has taken literally a leap of faith. So there have times when we said, well, this is what we have to put into it. Can you get us started? Can you get going? And St. Peter's has kind of carried the ball and at times carried the responsibility financially until grants could come through or funding sources. And now we're getting to the point, hopefully state and federal funding will be more consistent coming forward. We'll be able to bill for things that we, in the future that maybe we couldn't in the past. So I'm hopeful that we're moving in the right direction. This grant's going to be helpful for sure. And just to really appreciate the partnership and hanging in there with us and taking the leap of faith and working with our law enforcement. I think that's an education as well. Law enforcement, this isn't their traditional way of practice in the past, and they've really adjusted and come forward and done a great job in terms of embracing this as well. So, and Peerview and other providers in the community have been great partners, and I appreciate that very much. So I intend to support this motion, as you can probably tell, and I thank you, Sarah, and our public health, Jolene and others, public health, for the guidance and leadership and really carrying the ball, moving this forward and keeping our nose in the game. So anyone further,
Absolutely.
commissioners? Okay, that all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Thank you very much for being here. All right, next item on the agenda is a grant award to Lewis and Clark Public Health from the Montana Department of Public Health and Human Services.
Hey, good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. I'm Sarah Sandow from Lewis and Clark Public Health and the Community Health Promotion Division Administrator. Today, I have before you a grant award from the Montana Department of Public Health and Human Services for their Healthy Montana Families Program for the amount of $264,483.62. The grant period is from October 1st, 2023 through September 30th, 2024. This funding covers our Nurse Family Partnership Program and Parents as Teachers Program and was in the fiscal year 24 budget. As you may remember, I originally brought this forward on March 26th for $256,067.63. Before we were able to sign, after the commission approved, the state had pulled back the DocuSign because they wanted to amend it since it wasn't originally signed yet. We now have the official amended task order, although we didn't sign the original one. And the changes are the following. So now the total amount is $264,483.62. This is a 4% increase in some of the funds. So it's not 4% from that total, it's 4% in certain funds. And therefore, there's a greater amount being awarded to us.
Yes.
Also, in October, when this task order started, we had 3 home visitors. 1 was a Parents as Teacher home visitor, and 2 were the Nurse Family Partnership home visitors. We had a nurse home visitor leave in December. When we reposted that position, we decided to switch that position to a Parents as Teachers home visitor instead. That switch meant we were able to recruit a community health worker position instead of a nurse. Which opens the potential candidates and reduces expenses as well, because a community health worker is meant to be someone who's living in our community, has experience in our community, knows the resources in our community versus has the nurse background and credentials. So we hired that position in March, and so that person is now being trained and onboarded and taking on clients as well. So the Nurse Family Partnership brings a personal nurse for women who qualify to advise and information during pregnancy up till the child is 2 years of age. The Parents as Teachers program provides a parent educator for families prenatally till the child is 5 years old. Parents as Teacher emphasizes education on their child's development, family well-being, and school readiness. Both of these home visiting programs help build skills and tools for new parents in our Lewis and Clark County area. Currently, we have 15 families enrolled in our Parents as Teachers and 14 families enrolled in our Nurse Family Partnership. Once our new Parents as Teachers staff member is fully onboarded, the program should have 46 families enrolled per year. Staff recommends approval, and I have staff here as well for any additional questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Questions, commissioners? Any questions? Excellent explanation. It's complicated with all the changes and things, but I really appreciate that. Any public comment on this item? Any public comment? Public comment? Okay, hearing none. Commissioners, is there a motion, please?
Chairman, I move that I gotta find the number 10.
Number 11.
Number 11. I move that we approve the grant award to Lewis and Clark Public Health from the Montana Department of Public Health and Human Services as presented by Ms. Sandow.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the grant award as presented. Further discussion, commissioners? There's a lot there. Grateful for the supplemental funds and the work that we're going to be doing with that, and the award and all that we can accomplish. You described it well, so thank you so much. All right, commissioners. Without further comment, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Okay, we move on. We have a board appointment, Eastgate Volunteer Fire District. Mr. Fitzpatrick, welcome. Thanks for being patient out there.
Connor Fitzpatrick, Lewis and Clark County elections, very important with the public health. So happy to be patient, not a problem there at all. Mr. Chair, Commissioners, as you all probably recall, we were notified a few weeks ago by the fire chief of Eastgate Volunteer Fire Department, Kevin Quick, that Sue Mergenthaler had passed away, unfortunately. Her 40 years of help with the Eastgate Volunteer Fire Department is much appreciated, and Quentin Mergenthaler has applied to take her seat. After verifying everything is good to go, staff recommends that Quentin Mergenthaler be appointed to the vacancy to serve until next year, where that seat will be up as an unexpired term.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, questions, comments?
Just a comment, the Mergenthaler family have been key out there at Eastgate for many years, and looks like another member of the family is keeping up the tradition.
Thank you. How about public comment on this item? Any public comment? Public comment? Hearing none, is there a motion, please?
Mr. Chair, I would move to accept the board appointment to make that we make the appointment to the board of the Eastgate Volunteer Fire District, as explained by Mr. Fitzpatrick.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the board appointment to the Eastgate Volunteer Fire District as presented. Further discussion, Commissioners? I'd like to thank Quentin as well and recognize the Mergenthaler family and their dedication to Eastgate Volunteer Fire over the years, and happy to support this. That, Commissioners, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Fitzpatrick. Next item on the agenda is going to be budget presentations. We are going to take a short break, and we're going to have our first budget presentation for fiscal year 2025 by the Superintendent of Schools at 10:45 a.m. So we will take a break until that time, and we will be right back here. That's about 13 minutes from now or so. Thank you all very much. We're going to reconvene, and we will start the meeting again. Good morning. This is the annual budget presentation from the Superintendent of Schools. We have Katrina Chaney with us today. Good morning, Superintendent. Good to have you. Oh, yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, have to have the green light. There you go. You got it on?
I think I'm on now.
All right. Well, just before you take off, just an explanation for those that are watching today, because we've kind of just added this on to the end of our public meeting. And so we're continuing on. We took a little break here to use the restroom and get coffee and come back, and grateful that you're able to join us. So what we're going to do today is have our annual budget presentations like we always have, a little more formal setting, but that's okay. And then we'll move through them. We have Superintendent of Schools, Administration and Finance, Rocky Mountain Development Council will be joining us, Montana Business Assistance Connection, and CASA. Those are all budgets that we, or at least partial budgets that we work with annually. So we are starting with our Superintendent of Schools today, and it is great to have you here, and I'm going to turn the floor over to you, and our finance staff is here as well. So if we have hard questions, just
All right.
we'll bother them, but I think we'll be okay. So welcome.
Yeah. Welcome. Thank you very much. I appreciate the welcome. And Katrina Chaney, Lewis and Clark County Superintendent of Schools. This is just an easy breezy one today because it is just my budget for my office. So not including anything for the school. So this is, I'm just a one-woman show in my office, and so everything's pretty general here. So my budget is staying relatively the same from last year. I think I took a little bit off on transportation because I attend 2 different workshops, and one will be in Helena this next year and the other one just in Bozeman. So travel should be a little bit less for me in the upcoming year. Everything else is just pretty much lined out for me other than office supplies and minor equipment and travel. So I'm not sure what you want. Every year, this is always just, I'm not sure what you want to know on these.
Yeah, no,
So
I think that's fine. So your overall budget anticipated for 2025, 144,235.
right.
And that last year was 140,175. So pretty status quo with the inflationary factor in there.
Right. So part of that is just
Right.
added into salary. So,
Right.
but nothing else has really changed. So
Yep.
not this year. I didn't change much.
And just for those that can't see this, it might be listening or watching today, office supplies and postage and parking and a little bit of travel and training, those kinds of things, insurance,
Telephone.
technology, telephone, yeah. So the basic office items in there and then your salary. So that's what we're talking about today.
Exactly.
Any questions, commissioners, for superintendent?
Please, couple of
Yes.
things. Do you have numbers for total students, including
Right,
the
they are
homeschool and
on that
private
first
school?
sheet. So, do you want them, do you want me to just read them out?
Maybe just just totals. I don't know. Well, if you.
So total, this includes public, private, and homeschool, 11,218 students this in October of 23.
Okay. And what about the previous year?
It's a little bit of an increase, not a whole lot. I don't have it right with me, but I'm thinking it was around 10,800. So 400 to 500 more students. That's all across the board. So really, we didn't have a big increase.
Uh-huh.
So
Maybe you could get that for me later and just.
yeah, I
and
can
just
get,
email it.
absolutely. I
Email
can
it.
tell you exactly on each of these because that's one of my duties is to keep up with enrollment. So I have it depends on how you want it. I have it by school, by
And I think
homeschool,
you've provided that stuff for us in the past. If you could maybe do an update on that whole thing.
right. And then
send that as
it
well.
goes in, the city asked me for it in the fall and then the county does at some point. So I've got all that, so I can certainly
just
provide you. So you want just a comparison for the past this
Well,
school year as compared to one more, or do you want further
we
back
had
than
so
that?
much distortion during that whole period of COVID that maybe we should go back 5 years or something
Okay.
like that, just to,
I can do it.
that'd be great. And then one other question, if I might, this, for Frank, what's the source of funds here?
Katrina's budget is fully funded out of the general fund. This is out of the all-purpose general fund.
Just a strictly general fund for
Yep.
the county?
Yep, it's strictly a
Okay.
general fund, with your all-purpose, mill levy.
Glad you had the answer. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Waltz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Katrina. So commissioners, this is the first budget you're looking at under our relatively new process this year. This may be one of the most less complex budgets that you'll be seeing, okay, over today and over the next several days. So thank you very much, Katrina. And commissioners, within your budget book that Misty and Frank have provided to you, all the different presentations that you're going to be getting today and in the coming days will be included in your budget book. And this one in particular, under the tab just after the sheriff's office tab is where you will find this information. And it does have a sheet that's titled Superintendent of Schools. And it's got a paragraph, the mission statement of the Superintendent of Schools with a good summary of information about what is done and some of the metrics or some of the statistics associated with this budget as well. But it's like I say, it's a less complex budget, and usually it's only about a 5 to 10 minute conversation regarding this budget every year. But I just wanted to point out to you in your budget book where it's at. It doesn't have a specific, or at least in mine, it doesn't have a specific tab, but it's right after where you see the sheriff's tab, if you want to look it up. Thank you.
You bet. And just pointing that out to people, there's a long list of duties and things that you do, but one of the very primary things that you do is the first one there with the 3 rural schools and the 5 full-time teachers and 3 full-time paraprofessionals, 67 students, providing all of the support for those rural entities is a really important piece of your work. I don't know if you want to speak to that at all, or
It-
go ahead.
I guess I do consider that my most primary, part of my position, but it's also the most fun part of my job.
Yes.
So, and tonight but I also go out to each of the school districts for certain things. I deal with transportation at each of the schools as the county transportation director. I mean, that doesn't mean that I line up every bus route, but I do meet with those and improve. But last night I was at East Helena for a good portion of the evening, and then tonight I will be going to Augusta I go and in place of a notary, I'm the one that takes the oath of those new trustees, and that's always fun in May to get out and see the county. So Augusta
Great.
tonight.
You bet. Thank you. Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you.
As well as those 3 rural schools.
Okay. You know, I've got to ask a question.
Okay.
So the enrollment of 10,161 students, that includes all the ones in the Helena School District?
I'm
I'm looking at your mission
Oh.
statement. So there are 7.
Oh, that's the public schools. Yes.
Yeah,
That's our 7 public schools.
Okay, and what are the 7 public school districts?
The 7 public school districts are Helena, East Helena, Lincoln, Augusta, and then my 3 little rural schools, Wolf Creek, Canyon Creek, and then, which is Trinity School, and then Orchard Creek, which is on Milford Colony.
Oh, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That's all.
Okay. All right. Great.
And that's something I think a lot of people in the county don't know.
That's
They don't
right.
know that they'll used to look at me like 7 school districts, what are the 7 school districts? So anyway, anything else?
Always an opportunity to educate people. So no, thank you
Yeah.
very much. Perfect.
All right.
Just to,
Oh, please.
just a comment. You do such a great job of being efficient in what you do.
Thank you.
And I mean, I'm only,
I was a minister's child. I learned how to do that pretty well growing up.
I mean,
There wasn't a lot there.
your budget changed. It's 2.8%, for the total budget. I think that's remarkable that you're able to hang in there, and
Thank you. I appreciate it.
thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the good work.
You bet.
Okay.
And thank you
It
guys
just-
for your support. I appreciate it.
Just one other question with
You bet.
do you see any problems or things that will change for you because of the mill levies, particularly in the big districts here?
In the big
Going-
districts, absolutely. Yes. I mean, that was part of why I was in East Helena for a good long time last night. They were discussing, how they're going to continue to use provide the programs that they're not going to be able to provide every program that they've had
Yeah.
in the past. So
Yeah.
I don't know yet for Helena, but it kind of hit home
I
last
don't
night.
recall, since I think I've been here 35 years, and I don't recall a time when virtually all the budgets in the valley here were turned down. So,
Right.
yeah, before.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. You guys have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
And we will take any public comment on this budget presentation. Any public comment? Seeing no public come forward, we thank you very much.
That's okay.
And we will move on. We're going to have the administration and finance budget next.
Mr. Chair, if I could.
Please, Commissioner, Mr. Baltz.
Thank you. Commissioners, I wanted to offer a few introductory comments about our budget process to you today as we get going.
Great, that'd be great.
And summarize a little bit of what we're doing, and then I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Cornwell, Ms. Edwards, and we'll jump into things. So commissioners, obviously this year it's a little bit different. We've added some formality to our process by meeting here in the commission chambers. But commissioners, what's going to happen is you're going to be receiving budget presentations from different department directors and from different elected officials. And these are budget presentations. I want to take you back in time just a little bit. Back in late January, we had some discussions and we sent out some directions regarding budget preparation for this fiscal year. And one of the things, and Mr. Cornwell sent this out, was that as the operational, all the different aspects of the operation began to build their budgets, the priority that we established was we wanted to attempt, if we could during our budget process this year, to do something that we've done for many, many years, and that is implement a COLA, a cost of living allowance if possible. And the tentative percentage that we identified as a target was 3.5%. So as you get these budget presentations throughout today and in coming days, you will probably hear some of this repeated. So, and some of the things I'm saying you'll probably hear repeated, but 3.5% has been built into the budget presentations. We also requested all of our different preliminary budgets as they were being built, that the departments, to the fullest extent they could, produce what we refer to as status quo budgets, particularly under their operations and maintenance. Hold the line. Status quo budgets, unless there was some compelling reason, some legislative mandate that we need to address. And commissioners, you know, Commissioner Hunthausen, you've been through this many times, and Commissioner Rolfe, you as well. And I think Commissioner Payne, this is your second formal time to go through it. But there are going to be certain parts of our budget that we don't control. We need to adequately budget for things like inflation. We need to adequately budget for things that have come up during the year that are clear to us that we need to adjust for. I'll give you a perfect example. When we get to the part of the budget presentation where the detention center is going to be discussed, we know that we need to adjust the expenditure budget for the detention center up because of the increased cost of providing food to the inmates at the detention center. So you will see those types of adjustments. But we asked for status quo budgets to be produced. And commissioners, and I know Mr. Cornwell is going to speak to this as well too. When we get into building these budgets, before you finally approve them, if there are requests out there, and the other thing that we asked everyone to do is to be very, very judicious and thoughtful, and not ask for additional full-time employees unless there's a very compelling justification and reason for it. So where you see increases that may come forward during these budget presentations, just like we've done in the past, when you've had all of these presentations, we will take all of the requests for additional funding that you're going to see in these presentations, and we will have a final budget work session that will happen in June. We do this every year, where you will see a list of additional expenditure requests with a recommendation from administration and finance regarding what we recommend to you. And then you will make the final decision on whether to approve those or not. And again, that's how we've done it for many, many years here. And if you have any questions about that, please do just let us know. But it's the process we've used for some time. The other thing that I really want to mention to you today as we get going with this is our request to all of the county leadership out there as they've built their preliminary budgets is to build their budgets to their sustainable revenues for their operations. So I know that sounds pretty basic, commissioners, but it's a message that we always send out as a part of our budget process every year when budgets are being built. It's a reality that we have to build our budgets to the revenues that we have. And so during the presentations you get this year, just like you do every year, we want the leadership to directly present to you what they're asking for and their reasons behind it, and provide explanations to you if they want something additional. But in the end, we have to reconcile and summarize all of the revenues we're expecting against all the expenditures have been requested. And when we have that final work session, that's when we'll get down to talking about some things. The other thing that I wanted to mention to you today, just as we get going, is in addition to the COLA that we sent out as a part of the budget message that went out this year, our target of 3.5%. There are also parts of our budget that we call fixed cost. Fixed cost, as Mr. Cornwell will go through with you in more detail than I am right now, are things like insurance. So commissioners, for instance, we have had our property and casualty insurance through a pool with Mako for many, many years. We have met with Mako, and Mako has let us know that our renewal rate has been increased by a little over 19%. So we will build that. That's been built into the budget and the presentations you will receive. And that has a cost of a little over $220,000 to the overall budget of Lewis and Clark County as we move forward. Fixed cost also include things like the rental rates that we pay for occupying this building and the Law and Justice Center building, and that the health department pays for the Murray building. Again, it's a fixed cost that gets built into the budget. Mr. Cornwell and Misty work together to put together what those fixed costs will be. Another thing that we're really paying attention to this year as we get going, as you know, is that we've seen our health fund cost increase. So again, just in the big picture of some of the really large fixed costs that we will need to address in our budget this year, we have
It's our
some.
health insurance fund.
I'm sorry, health insurance fund. Thank you very much, Commissioner Hunthausen. So in our health insurance fund, we are self-insured, and we have seen our claims dramatically increase over the past year and a half to 2 years. You'll remember that you've taken some action to address that by allowing us to shift some CARES money to address that. We have some strategies this year to share with you that involve some slight adjustments to what we're asking our employees to do, but also the full implementation of a permissive tax levy that is specifically there to assist us with our health insurance needs as a county government. So that's a recommendation you're going to see in the budget this year. But I'm mentioning these things because they are a part of what we call the fixed cost that we build into our budget every year. So you will see some increases. Commissioner Rolfe, you just mentioned a moment ago, I think you had done a calculation for Katrina regarding her budget being up. The COLA alone is going to raise the expenditures for most of the budgets that you're going to see this year. So you'll see some ups and downs and some changes, but this is the opportunity to discuss all these budgets with all the different departments. But I just wanted to offer those introductory comments to you. For instance, if you get a presentation sometime in the next few days regarding a budget that's asking for some kind of a change or an additional FTE, the expectation is not for you to say yes or no to that during the presentation you're receiving. When we have received all of the presentations, any kind of request like that will be broken out. We will take a look at it against the overall picture of our budget, and we will make a recommendation to you that you can either accept or you can go another direction in as your capacity as our decision makers as county commissioners. So that's the way our budget process has worked for many, many years. I think it's a very good process. It's very transparent. It gives you plenty of opportunity to ask questions. And if we don't know the question to something that comes up, then we will go back and we will find out the answer to that question. But as we get going, I just wanted to offer up those few comments. Let's see. One of the things that Mr. Cornwell's has already been working on for us, and finance has been working on, is to really evaluate what's going to be happening with our inflationary growth factor and our overall growth factor, which goes into the revenue picture for the county. That's not completely ready for us. It'll be ready in the coming weeks and months as we finalize our budget. So commissioners, you're going to have your presentations today. Then you're going to have a lot of presentation. Well, you're going to have presentations starting at 3 o'clock this afternoon for the joint budgets that we have with the city of Helena. And then on May the 28th and May the 30th, we've set those days aside completely for budget presentations to you, just like we've done in past years. So that's the picture moving forward with what's going to be happening with the county budget. All right. I just wanted to offer those comments as we get going today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Baltzen. They're very appropriate and timely comments. Thank you for doing that. I I should have probably done more of that at the outset, so thank you for covering us on that regard, and I appreciate it very much. Mr. Cornwell, we are talking now about our administration and finance budget.
Good morning, commissioners.
Floor to you.
For the record, my name is Frank Cornwell, Chief Financial Officer for the county. Yes, we will be going over 3 budgets from the, I guess, administrative office, and then plus 2 solid waste budgets that Misty Edwards will be going over as well. Just to reiterate what CAO Bolts was saying, yes, all these budgets have a 3.5% COLA. This is something that the finance department puts together for all departments. We put that,
right.
We calculate that all out, and all departments have that calculation within their budgets. And it's something that we do within our office. Misty works really hard on it, and she eventually has to tell people to stop making changes. They move staff here and over from one area to the other, and it becomes a headache. But eventually, we got to say no. But that's a lot of work that the finance staff puts in for the departments. The other thing that Baltz referred to was the fixed costs. A lot of work going into that for ITNS costs, the rents, the insurance, our admin fees. All of those are calculated within the finance staff. The other things that the finance staff will be working on later on, and Roger referred to these as well, are the property and liability insurance. We saw a significant increase there, a 19% increase there across the county. We will be making recommendations later after we receive all of the budgets on these, on how to deal with these other funds with insurance. That includes the health insurance pool, and also we will be talking about the contingency fund as well later on as well. So we're not getting into too much detail there until we get a full picture as to where the county is and from an overall perspective. And then also we will be bringing those new discretionary requests from the departments. So anything that's new on here that we deem as that needs to have additional consideration from the commission, you will be seeing again later on. And also just with that meeting, that work session that has those new requests, will also be we traditionally include the miscellaneous contracts as part of that discussion, because those are large, and we think it's really important for the commission to consider each one of those every year. So you'll see those at the end, but we don't need to go into real big discussion today. If we want to, we can get into bigger discussion on those, or when we have that work session. So to go into the presentation, we'll start off with the commission budget, which are you three. Usually this is very similar to kind of Katrina's. There's not a whole lot of changes here. I'm gonna go through my, and so this, well, I'll go right, I gotta read off my notes here. So the Board of County Commissioners budget is accounted for within the all-purpose fund. It includes salary and benefits for the 3 full-time commissioners and related operations and maintenance costs. The fiscal year 2025 budget is $562,821, which is an increase of 3.45% over prior years. These increases are due to the COLA and step increases and health plan contribution increase. Also there's a minor O&M increase of $5,000, $5,315. And also this budget includes a CIP contribution of $4,000, which goes to fund for a new commission vehicle or copier. Those are the 2 items on your CIP plan. I'm gonna go through it. Are there any questions with the commission budget before I move to the administrations? Okay. The administration budget is accounted for also in the all-purpose fund. It includes salary and benefits for 11 full-time positions, including finance, HR, which is personnel, and administration. The fiscal year 2025 budget is $1.9 million, which is an increase of 4.64% more than the prior year. Again, it includes a 3.5% COLA with those health plan contribution increase and step increases. We also are including a $10,000 miscellaneous budget item for potential market adjustments this year. 100,000 for potential market adjustments. It's something that we always do whenever we have market analysis happening, which we will be having in fiscal year 2025.
And Mr. Cornwell,
Yes.
just to clarify that miscellaneous $100,000 that to address market changes is not just for these
Nope.
11 positions. This is for
This is for
enterprise-wide, yeah.
This is enterprise-wide, county-wide, but this is a
Wanted-
way to make it simple so that we don't have
Keep
to.
it in their budget, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
For this budget, thank you.
So we don't get caught off guard with a big market adjustment for staff. Overall, there's a decrease of $11,000 in O&M due to a reduction in minor equipment. That is because we purchased furniture for conference room 309, and that is now done and off the books. So that was a reduction in O&M for this year. Fixed costs, you'll notice, have gone up significantly for administration, and that is due to the city no longer participating or sharing in the costs of our accounting system, Central Square. They used to use the same system, so we'd share the costs and we'd use the cost allocation and we'd all be billed through ITNS. Now we have to pay that directly because ITNS cannot fairly split that out. They have to hit us directly with it. So it's not overall, it's not a hit to the overall county budget. So what actually happens is you'll notice as you're seeing presentations is that ITNS cost actually went down overall. And that's due to us paying this directly out of the administration budget.
So excuse me, just a minute.
Yep.
The increase that you're talking about there is on the where it says fixed charges, software agreements.
Yes, correct. Yep. So in 2024, it was 160,000 and it went up to 244,000. And that's all due to that direct billing. Lastly, we have for the administration budget, we have a list of contracted services. Most of these items are HR related. You know, the flex plan administrative costs, flu shots, market survey plan. We just referred to that earlier. Board training, all of this stuff, ADA improvements. These have all been commission priorities, and we've included those year over year. So the largest of the three budgets is the miscellaneous general fund budget. It is accounted for again in the all-purpose fund. This budget accounts for various activities across the fund, such as veteran burial services, mental evaluation costs, various contracts, and appropriations to nonprofit agencies, which will come in today after lunch. And you'll get to talk about that later this afternoon. Also miscellaneous transfers to other funds. Note that there are no personnel costs paid from this fund. The 2025 budget is at $2.7 million, which is close to an 8% increase over prior year. That increase is primarily driven due to the mental evaluation services having a significant increase due to rate increases and also I think they're using the mental evaluations a little more, but mainly driven due to the state now charging a significantly higher rate than they have in the past. And this is when we send I guess.
Persons.
What's that?
Persons.
From the detention center that they're deemed to have a mental illness that needs to be reviewed. And they go to Warm Springs, and there's a charge associated with that. And that charge has gone up significantly year over year. And you'll see that in the budget. It was budgeted at $79,000 for 2024. Now we're going to budget $250,000 for 2025. We are already over budget by over 100,000, 120,000 for 2024. So you'll see an amendment request for that later on this year.
Yeah.
Just
a
yes
comment on that so the commissioners understand. We haven't done anything significantly different. I mean, our numbers might be up this year a bit, but so for these mental commitments, this is when someone is a risk of themselves or someone else. And so through a court process, a judge says, we're going to detain you for a mental health evaluation at the state hospital. We pay those charges in that period of time where they're being detained on behalf of the county, if you will. But prior to the last year, 2 years, we paid, I believe, the Medicaid rate. And now the state hospital is not Medicaid eligible. And so they have raised their rates to that point of essentially the retail rate. And we are paying a significantly higher daily rate to have someone evaluated at the state hospital. And so essentially their inability to maintain their Medicaid status at the state hospital and their competency there as related to higher costs for all the counties across the state. It's really unfortunate because we're getting billed at a much higher rate than we used to get billed. And even though we may not have that significant different of number of cases, we're getting billed a way higher rate, which is really disheartening. And I'm hopeful that the state get this fixed.
And just to add as well, internally, we have ramped up the effort into reviewing these charges.
Mm-hmm.
So they've always had a significant amount of review and due diligence to review them to make sure, because sometimes we'll get a charge for another county.
Yeah.
And then we'll have to make those corrections. I'm forgetting the Angie from county attorney's office. She spends a lot of time reviewing these invoices, and she makes sure that we're not paying for something that we're not supposed to. And it's just unfortunate to see where things have gone.
My understanding is that there's a significant change coming in that we'll be able to do local mental health evals instead of having to send them there. So that might not have to, that there might be
that would be
an option that'll save us some money.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Really appreciated to see that coming. So just to wrap up the miscellaneous budget, we'll talk about your CIP. So these are the large CIP items that you see for the county that the commissioners have committed to. This generally doesn't change year over year, but just to point out a few items. So you have the imagery for the treasury, digitizing, fairgrounds annexation, another fairgrounds annexation for archiving, flood mitigation for FEMA. That's a match that we budget for every year just in case there is a flood. So when FEMA comes in, it's not a free lunch. We have to match a portion of those funds when they come and help. I think this is a result of a flood that happened in Augusta years ago. And so now we're budgeting for that. A typical $300,000 miscellaneous as needed across the board. We're still paying off the second floor remodel, and we haven't fully implemented the new ERP system for accounting. We expect that probably to happen next year, or actually beginning of fiscal 26. That is your CIP. If you guys had any questions on that, Commissioner?
Yeah, I guess I'm not finding it in my,
Oh,
what page are you looking at there?
so right after, it might have gotten out of order on you. Yeah, it looks a little different. It says 5-year improvement program summary at the top. It's right after the budget itself. You see,
For the, am I on the right one here? Okay.
and we contribute 800,000 a year into that fund.
Yeah, that's what I was going to be clarify, that we're not putting 3.3 million
Nope.
into this fund.
No, we
This
are.
year. That's our goal and what we'd like to sustain there for these projects until we actually address them.
Mhm.
But annually, we're putting about 800,000 into this fund to try and get up to that 3.3 million to sustain. Okay.
Exactly, Commissioner.
Question.
I have a question. I'm looking at City County Archives / Museum - Fairgrounds Annex for $1 million. What?
That,
I'm
Commissioner?
happy to explain it. Roger and I can explain.
Yeah.
So a few years ago, when we acquired the old state shop property next to the fairgrounds entrance there, those old buildings where the state
yeah.
has there. So we said we need to start saving and set aside some money for someday addressing that property. And one idea at the time was, well, if we do need an archiving center or something of that nature, that maybe this is where it would be. So it kind of was a name placeholder.
Okay.
But we know we're going to have to address that property someday and either take down buildings, improve a building, or put it to use. We have only 3 more years of our contract, our state lease with the state surplus, and they're going to be moving out of there. And so it will be our property to try and address. We wanted to start saving some dollars so that we have something to address that property when the time came. So we've been saving for the last few years, and our goal is to have $1 million, which probably will get us started is all, but it will make a difference. Mr. Baltz, would you like to add to that?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maybe I could add just a little bit and build on what you said. So also, we've put together a working group that's taking a look at where we have records stored. So they've contracted with us, and they've already come in and done an inventory. Their report, I believe, is due to us by the end of this month. They're called Pacific Coast Conservation. So I don't know if you recall, but a few weeks ago, they were here in person going around and inventorying where all the records are. And that contract was for a little over $32,000. So we have expended some of these funds that you see on that list, Commissioner. Thank you.
Yeah, and I guess if the the one before that, Fairgrounds Annex Ryan Fields, that's maybe more the physical plant, but the $1 million was archiving, but this was the location that we thought we might ultimately have an archiving center. So those two in combination, and the 250,000 that in the prior one, that might not even be enough to take away all the condemned buildings that are in that property. So we're going to have to think about that. There's some environmental issues there as well, but anyway, we'll have to address that property when the time comes. Right now, it's under state lease for the time being.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
And if I could build on something as well, Mr. Chair, I know this wasn't a question, but when you look at the list you were looking at, you'll see that the LJC second floor remodel is still on there because that payment hasn't been made yet.
Right.
Okay. And the last item is the list of contracted services for the miscellaneous general fund. We always include this as part of your new discretionary line items as part of that discussion. So all these items will be considered on that day when we come together for that work session. But these are always a little large and discretionary. And so every year they have to have new consideration. I know that there's discussion on the Big Sky Rail and I think Rod, I'm trying to think of it. There's a couple, the new airport authority asking for funding for the new Phoenix route and the Dallas route. Note that the audit contract we have a new auditor, Ide Bailey, and that's their cost. It went up quite a bit, but that was expected. Audit costs have gone up. Auditing governmental agencies has become a lost art. So there's very few auditors out there, so that they know that, so they can charge pretty much anything they want to. But we got a really, really good auditor that really I think is a fair cost, and we were able to get a few options, and they were within range, so it wasn't too bad. So I don't know.
That's almost, I mean, that contract goes up and down a little bit, but that's almost a fixed cost. We have to do those audits. So
not much control there. But like I said, we'll have further discussion on each one of these items in the working session that we have in June.
Yeah, thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman and Frank, if I could just add a little bit to the list here to what Frank's already gone through with you. So commissioners, hopefully that list is in front of you and you're looking at it right now. So coming down to about the sixth item, the Humane Society abuse cases. We've started setting aside $30,000 a year in case there's some kind of animal gathering that's done as a part of abuse cases. It comes up from time to time. I wanted to mention under digitization of BOCC books. It's about 2/3 of the way down the list. We set aside $65,000 this fiscal year. So we've actually had some repair done this year, and those repairs came out well. They're in Nadine McCarty's office if you want to take a look at those. I think they did a quality job for us. But this is about digitizing when and where we need to. So it's something we started a couple of years ago, setting money aside. The commissioners this year did not support $10,000 to the Big Sky Rail Authority. I think you all know that, but it's on the list for you to consider whether you want to say yes or no to that this year. Symphony Under the Stars at $5,000 is a regular thing. And commissioners, I thought I would jump down to the third item from the bottom. Behavioral health services, parentheses, journey home. That $300,000 is included on the list because we have had conversations about it's uncertain what's going to happen with both the drop-in center and also the journey home right now, the building. We're actively negotiating regarding some issues with the journey home building right now, which I've had a chance to brief you up on. But we did have some discussions where it did appear that there might be some support from the county commissioners regarding providing some type of assistance sometime in the future, if you think it's appropriate, for behavioral health related services. And the number that was mentioned went back and forth, but $300,000 was a common number that was mentioned. So that's what that number is.
Yep.
And why it's on the list. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Oh, Commissioner Payne.
I'm a little concerned about when I see the term contracted, miscellaneous general fund contracted services. To me, it looks like it's past tense. We've already contracted for this. Is that not what that means? This is just generally that we enter into a contract for them.
That's basically the line item discussion. Maybe that's probably not a fair discussion or way to phrase it. The other I guess, term that we use for that line item is other purchases. Other items. This is kind of it is really truly miscellaneous, but since this is these are all large commission priorities that we included. I would not say that these are contracted right now. These are not.
Well, for example, the Big Sky Rail Authority, in the past, they agreed to give them $10,000. And that's in the past. It's not something we have signed a contract. When I see contracted, that looks like we have a signed contract for this service. And I'm not comfortable with that term, but I understand it means something else to you guys.
I mean, that's just the term we use for that line item. And I think you're right. We can make it so it's not past tense for you because these are not agreed upon.
These are all under consideration. So whatever title we want to put that's just clear.
Maybe a wish list.
No, that wouldn't be a good term either, but
wish list
consideration, but just consider that.
Proposals this looks like it's already done. And I think we need a word that says we're thinking about it.
Fair enough. Anything else talking about any one of these three budgets?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Now Misty will.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. For the record, Misty Edwards, Lewis and Clark County Finance. And I am here today to present two solid waste budgets that I handle. These are handled in the finance office outside of Public Works. So that's why I'm presenting to you today. The first one up is the Lincoln Solid Waste budget. The board has recommended a 7% assessment increase from 135 per unit to 130 or 143 per unit. All other fees are set to remain the same with Lincoln. And on the personnel side, a 3.5% cost of living increase, same as all budgets. I did visit with our finance officer. Lincoln Solid Waste currently pays 18% of my salary, which I do not provide 18% of my time to them. I offer about 10% of my time. So we've lowered that in this budget down to 13% to more accurately reflect what they should be paying for my salary. 10% or 13% is probably even a little high, to be honest. So there's a slight reduction in personnel because of that decrease. Operations and maintenance, the district has decided to change the way that they do aluminum recycling and paper recycling. And so there's a slight reduction in that. We will no longer be contracting with Republic Services. Instead, we're moving to Pacific Steel and Recycling, and that reduced those costs a little bit. And then in the sanitation services line item, this budget assumes a 5.5% increase in those costs. I'm still working on that contract with Republic Services and have not received a definitive solid waste assessment increase in that one. Are there any questions with Lincoln Solid Waste?
I'm confused about your changing from Republic Services to Pacific.
For the aluminum recycling.
Okay, so that is in addition to the 5.5% increase.
So the Pacific Steel and Recycling is paid out of the contract services line item. That fee will go down. Contract services will go down. The contract with
seeing the contract services line. Okay, it's
on the second page.
Okay.
The contract with Republic Services is in the sanitation services line item. And that's where you'll see the most significant increase in this budget at 5.5%. All of the other fixed costs are relatively the same, as Frank had mentioned earlier, slight increases. Contracted services includes the contract services includes the aluminum roll-off rent, our DEQ Class 3 burn site license is $700. Our contract with John Thompson, who burns the burn pile, is $4,500. We rent a porta potty for the attendant up there. That's a little over $2,000, and then miscellaneous contracts as needed throughout the year is $6,400. Any other questions about the Lincoln budget?
Any other?
It would appear that from the 24 budget to the 25 proposed budget, only looking at a 1.6% expenditure increase. Am I reading that right?
That is correct. Our contract with Republic Services for that aluminum recycling was pretty hefty. It was about $7,500 a year. Moving to Pacific Steel will be about $1,500 a year.
Wow.
Yeah,
Good job.
thank you.
It is a big difference, and it'll be better. It'll probably get used more because people are hauling their stuff out to the other place to dump them.
Yeah.
They just weren't using the facilities that were.
Mr. Chair, that's correct. The two recycle bins that we had were at the senior citizens in their parking lot. I'm sure you saw them many times. They were between the library and the senior citizens. We had a lot of misuse and abuse of those because they weren't monitored. We would have people throw their trash away in those, which would contaminate the recyclables. What little revenue we may receive, we never received any because it was contaminated. We were paying to rent those containers every month. And the paper one's so we've been paying for the paper one for 2 years. It hasn't been pulled and hauled away for revenue. So
Because it hadn't been full enough.
it hadn't been full enough for them to come up and get it. So the board wanted to make some changes. They had the Republic come and get their containers. We use Pacific's now. Pacific only charges us when they do a swap out. They're now at the site where the attendant can monitor them, make people remove their aluminum from trash bags, make sure that the proper items are being recycled in the proper way. So hoping to see some changes there with recycling.
Question, when you say they are on the site, is that Pacific people or is this an employee of the Lincoln Solid Waste District?
Lincoln Solid Waste District doesn't have any employees. The attendant is a Republic Services employee, and he monitors all the trash coming in and he directs people.
Thank you. Yeah, that's exactly what I needed to clarify. I have another comment about the pay-as-you-throw item. I've had a couple of different people call and say, why don't they give us a receipt when we pay cash and they put the $5 in their pocket and we want to know it's being accounted for? And I've talked to a couple of people about this, but it does seem like it's come up often enough that, and I'm sure the people who are running that don't put the cash in their pocket, but could you make sure that these receipts are going out and there's a bookkeeping system to reflect the pay as you dump or pay as you throw activities?
Commissioner, actually pay as you throw is billing that I do in my office, but I think the revenue that you're thinking of that's accounted for in miscellaneous revenue.
Okay.
And there are receipts. The attendant does fill out receipts. They're all in my office. I have reminded him to please give the duplicate copy to the customer, even if they don't want it.
Okay, that's probably where the miscommunication is.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. Any other questions about Lincoln? Okay, let's move on to Augusta.
So the Augusta budget is the board up there has voted to recommend some changes to the way that district operates. Currently, they contract with Republic Services to haul all of their waste to the landfill in Great Falls. They would like to not renew their contract at the end of this fiscal year. That contract is actually up for renewal. They are recommending we do not renew, and instead we shift the operations to county, so it be included in the full picture for the county solid waste program. So I guess I'll start with revenues first with that in mind. The board has voted to recommend an 11% assessment increase from 135 per equivalent unit to 145 per equivalent unit. And also in the revenue category, they're going to request a $50,000 operating loan from the landfill capital fund. And I'll get into the details of what that will fund, but that will be a 5-year loan with a 4.75% interest rate. That's an interest rate that was agreed upon. It's less than the Board of Investments interest rate currently. This budget assumes a 3.5% cost of living increase. There is a part-time staff member up there. This is not a contracted employee. It also assumes an increase of approximately $9,000 to pay county landfill staff time to haul the containers. So they would have their time from the county landfill to Augusta to pick up the containers, swap them out, and haul back. The operations and maintenance, the operating supplies are mostly status quo. New permits will be issued in January 2025, so the budget does reflect that increase.
June,
excuse me, 2025. Minor equipment, this is the big one. It includes a $35,000 purchase of a trailer, and that's what the $50,000 loan would be used for, is to purchase that trailer. That trailer will be able to haul 2 40-yard containers from Augusta to our landfill. So our landfill will now be making revenue from Augusta. And instead of Augusta paying $43 a ton for a tipping fee to the Great Falls landfill, they'll now be paying a $25 per ton tipping fee. So it should be a significant savings for Augusta. It'll just kind of be hard to see that first year. Augusta will have to pay the Marysville subdistrict to use their truck. Marysville subdistrict has a haul truck, and they have agreed to let Augusta use that truck for the FEMA rate, which is $94.94 an hour. So this budget does assume that increase as well. Other contracted services includes the City of Helena recycling fees, the DEQ Class 3 license, which is approximately $700, the City of Helena admin fee, and that's the fee that we're charged through the solid waste interlocal agreement. Jackie Pearson, who manages and works out at the county landfill, spends a significant amount of time working on the Augusta issues. The Marysville subdistrict, approximately $19,000 for the use of that haul truck. And then they would like to use some of those proceeds from the loan to dispose of their plastics, which have been sitting there for several years. They were quoted the cost $8,000 to get rid of that plastic. They have suspended plastics recycling. They would just like to get rid of what they have there. It's such a tiny budget that they would like to use some of the loan to get rid of that. And then any additional miscellaneous contracts as needed, $2,500. Are there any questions about the changes in Augusta?
I sit on this board and got to be there to listen to the discussion on how they were going to handle this. They're not happy with the Republic Services operation, and our staff, Jackie and Jenny, they had 3 different scenarios to present to the board. And it was like, okay, we could do this, or we could do this, or we could do this. The one where they borrow money from us and use it, it made absolutely the best sense. And they explained it so clearly that the other 2 potential changes were just sort of, it was just obvious that this is, we're borrowing money from the landfill capital fund. It's going to be repaid at 4.75%. It just really made sense. And I was very impressed with the work that Jackie and Jenny had put into coming up with this plan to get a trailer and haul it back and forth. And yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Other comments, questions in that regard? Okay, anything else?
Nope.
Okay, so that's it for the administration budget presentation. So, we had the three administration, under administration budgets there, and then the two, landfill or solid waste budgets, Lincoln and Augusta, all included under general administration budgets and handled by our finance department. Any public comment on these budgets? Any public comment? Any public comment? Seeing no public here, commissioners, any further discussion? Thank you all very much. It's hard and nuanced. There's a lot to it. So appreciate you working with us. And commissioners, we are scheduled to be back here at 1 o'clock for Rocky Mountain Development Council's budget, and then at 1:30 for Montana Business Assistance Connection, and at 2 o'clock for CASA. So we will, when we're done here, if there's any further comment, we will be standing in recess until 1 o'clock. Anything further from our team over here? Okay, commissioners, anything further? All right, we will stand in recess until 1 o'clock. Thank you very much. We took a break from noon to 1, and we are continuing in our budget sessions, our preliminary budget meetings. Now at the 1 o'clock hour, we are meeting with Rocky Mountain Development Council. Roger, any preamble you want to give? We already gave it earlier, and this is a continuation of our morning meetings. So we will first welcome you both, and you can introduce yourselves for the record, and we'll turn it over to you, and you can give us your highlights of your budget, at least the portions that relate to Lewis and Clark County. So welcome. Is the green light on? There. Green, there you go. Now start again. There you go. You're good to go.
Wait, green means go? Okay. Thank you for having us today, commissioners. My name is Lori Lattice, the Executive Director of Rocky Mountain Development Council. Do I need to spell it or?
I think you're okay.
All right.
Hi, and thank you. I'm Kathy Marks, Marks, and I'm Operations Director at Rocky.
Welcome to you both.
Well, thank you for having us, as I said, and thank you for your support over the years to the programs that Rocky runs. I know that you're pretty familiar with Rocky, but I'll just give you a brief overview of the programs, just as a reminder that we have at Rocky. The main programs that we use the county mill for, or I guess the only programs we use county mill for, are our senior programs. And that includes our congregate meal program, which we serve at the neighborhood center here in Helena. And we have sites in Augusta and Lincoln. And we also have a transportation program that we run here in Helena, where we have a bus that picks up seniors to come to the meals. And we have Meals on Wheels, which we are, I think now have about 40 plus volunteers. So we have a lot of volunteer routes going with that. We have one paid employee who's been with us for a very long time. We also have a senior center here that has activities. The narrative that we sent, I didn't put this on the flash drive, which I'll pull up the numbers here pretty soon, but I believe you got this from Misty last week, I hope, explaining a little bit more about the different programs that we use County Mill for. In addition to those programs, we have volunteer programs through AmeriCorps Seniors, and those are foster grandparents, senior companions, and retired senior volunteers. We run a Head Start program, which has sites in Helena, kind of all over Helena and East Helena. We have affordable housing. We have 12 properties currently. We have a preschool, and we also have low-income energy assistance. And area 4 Agency on Aging is under the Rocky umbrella as well. So right now, go ahead and flash up the spreadsheet.
So not much going on over there then.
No.
Oh, just
Okay.
drag it?
Just drag it. There
Oh,
we
good.
go. And I think you probably had this in advance as well, but
Great, thank
she
you.
asked me to bring this to show on the screen. So probably the first thing I want to mention is we did use a 3.5% trend just for the sake of having, asking for an increase mainly based on the rising costs of groceries and salaries and wages, trying to retain employees. I'm sure you're all intimately familiar with that being the case. And so that's what we started with. And the column that I would first focus you on would be the projected fiscal 24, which is in blue, the blue heading. And that is what we think we're going to end up using out of our county mill allocation for each of the programs that we use the funding for. And then just to the right of that is the proposed fiscal year 25. And there's a couple things in there that you'll notice are significantly different. And the main two are congregate and home delivered meals. And the reasons that those numbers have changed the way they have has to do with funding that we've had over the past 4 years, basically, that was COVID funding. The home delivered meals at 251,000, that's what we're estimating we would need to balance that program. The other funding source for that program is the Area 4 Agency on Aging, and similar congregate meals has the similar funding source. The reason why it is so much higher than what we think we're going to use this year is because we were just using up the last of our COVID funding from CSBG as well as Area 4 Agency on Aging. They had quite a bit of COVID funding as well. And so over the last few years, you can see that those two programs have significantly jumped up. And that's the main reason why. And the cost, like I said, of groceries. I've got a statistic that Kathy had pulled for a grant that she's writing right now for our Meals on Wheels program. And the Census Bureau is estimating that more than 30% of Montana's population will be over age 60 by 2030, which is a 43% increase from 2012. And from 22 to 23, we've seen an increase of over 20% in the number of seniors served and meals served. And the rising costs of groceries is anywhere in the neighborhood of 2.5% to 3%.
Wow.
So I guess I would just ask if you have any specific questions about the funding that we're asking for. One more thing before I probably should have said this before we jump to questions. We've had a carry forward of the county mill funding over the past few years because when we haven't had to use it all, because we've had additional funding sources, COVID funding, for example, we carry it forward. And the very bottom line will show you, starting with the left side of the screen in 2020, we finished the year out with about almost a $300,000 carry forward. And that grew over the next 2 years and then has started to drop down starting with fiscal year 23, 24, and now 25 is going to eat into it significantly because of the fact that we've used up all of our COVID funding sources. And so what we usually do is project it out for a couple more years. So you'll see 26 and 27 on the very right side of the page. And we've kept the amount of funding flat and the amount of expenses flat to show that with no changes by 27, we would need to find an additional almost 73,000 from some other funding source to make the programs whole.
Yeah. Wow.
So of course, these are estimates just based on what we think will happen, but barring another pandemic and a whole bunch more federal funding coming our way, this is what we think might happen.
Right. So it's it's going to be in the hole in a couple of years.
And you know, we were projecting something very similar to this right before the pandemic. We had done strategic planning for Rocky in 2019, and we were looking at what we thought would be running out of our county mill, or having more expenses than our allocation would support by like 2 years from then. And then the pandemic hit, and we did have quite an onslaught of additional funding coming in through Area 4 and through CSBG. So, and some of our other programs saw those huge federal jumps as well. So that was able to allow us to save the money, so to speak.
Okay. Yes. Heidi, questions there, Commissioners? Yes, sir.
You get you get a mill for this, right?
Yes.
Is it a full mill?
Do you know, Frank?
Commissioner, it's about 1 mil, yes. Yep.
About 1 mil.
Yep.
All right. And I mean, it seems like that, if I'm not looking here right, I just kind of see where so that would be under the Lewis and Clark County line up at their top.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
One time Nancy Everson came to a board meeting quite a number of years ago and was explaining, there's always been two pieces, at least since I've been at Rocky, and I shouldn't use the word always because I don't know when that started, but there has been a general fund piece and then the senior citizen mill piece, and that's where I'm assuming what you're saying, that's 1 mil. And then the general fund, I don't know how that is calculated.
So the general fund funding is one that we've seen as an ongoing funding, and it generally will have an inflationary factor that is adjusted year in and year out. The other portion is just the mill. It's just two pieces of funding sources, but it's kind of, they're basically adjusted the same way. Just that one's coming from a mill and one's coming from the general fund, which actually is a mill as well, but for the most part, it's general fund.
Please.
Of course, I have questions. So the mill, is that a Lewis and Clark County mill? So it's our county taxpayers pay this mill? And then what about Broadwater and Jefferson County?
I am not sure exactly how they calculate their funding. We don't usually go to them and have a meetings like this.
I don't believe that they supply them a mill, but their funding is probably purely from their general fund instead of a portion of their mill. It's just an assumption, though. I would have to follow up with them.
So the upper lines, it says general fund, senior programs.
Mm-hmm.
And general funds, meaning the Lewis and Clark County General Fund. And
Correct.
then senior citizen mill. That's the Lewis and Clark County Senior Citizen Mill.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, thank you. I just like to know what's going on here.
Yeah, it's good. Good to learn.
Yeah, I think. Oh, yeah. Would you like us to ask the other two counties, or does that make a difference?
No, it doesn't. It's just,
You're just curious.
I was elected by the Lewis and Clark County constituents and probably, or maybe watching this, and it's just stuff I'm supposed to know, I'm sure. It's going to be a test later.
So go ahead, Frank.
I think maybe for research, because you are showing a cliff here, and
Yeah.
as we reach that, we're gonna probably start wanting to really dig into funding sources for you. So
That's where I was going to go next, about what our options are for the future, because I guess some of my questions are how do we, I mean, the senior mill is set, is there something in statute, or is that something that we just or how does that work with across the state? And then the other part of it, it's discretionary. So if we chose to increase that or whatever, I mean, we could potentially put more into that.
Right.
The annual, I was going to say the inflationary factor, we could adjust that, but that's pretty typically, we do that same inflationary factor across all of our departments and offices. So that's pretty standard, but we could put more of the base mill in than we are now. I mean, that we have that potential. We don't, not saying we're going to do that. I'm just saying we have that potential.
It is commission discretion as to how much they want to provide for the general fund, from the general fund.
Right.
And I believe you also have discretion on the amount of mill they would receive.
Okay. So if we wanted to at least be part of the solution, just make an assumption here, if we wanted to be part of the solution of that future cliff there, we could address that to some degree.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner.
What are you estimating our mill increase is going to be for your budgeting purposes?
Overall, it'll be about 4.22%.
4.2?
Yeah, the inflationary factor is as high as it's ever been at 2.8%. And I'm being conservative with our growth estimate because the state didn't give us a very big growth last year. They only gave us
But the
3.5%.
the number that you're putting in for budget, for estimating
For the
budget is
about 4.2%.
4.2. Okay.
So that'll be the mill increase. And I'll provide Rocky those numbers, but these numbers are relative, I mean, they're close to what they are going to be in the end. So
That's the growth factor plus our
inflationary factor
together.
Yep.
The 4.2%.
Yep. It averages out to be.
So for folks that don't understand what that means, the inflationary factor is the formula the state gives us, right?
Correct. It's
which is half of the last 3 years average inflation. And then the growth factor is, if there are new homes, new buildings built and they start paying taxes, then there's a growth factor there. So the total growth is 4.2%.
Yeah, that's
So it was about 2.4% in terms of our inflationary factor that we could
2.8%.
Oh, 2.8.
Yep.
I have another question here. In the projected FY 24 column, clear at the bottom, it says *L/C 6.72%.
Yep.
Does that mean Lewis and Clark County? I mean, what is that?
That was the increase over the prior year that we received from Lewis and Clark County last year. And the 4% at the top is the other two counties. And so rather than doing a blended, we just highlighted it. That was the first time that we had a year where we got a different amount from Lewis and Clark than the other two.
Oh, did they usually, I mean, so all three counties gave the same amount, or how did that work?
Well, to be honest, what usually has happened is we come here for our budget meeting, and after we find out what we're getting, we usually just ask for the same increase from the other two counties. And because we don't present to them, it's just been informal, I guess.
Okay, so my next question is, why does Jefferson County contribute 63,000 and Broadwater County is 32,000? Is it difference in population or difference in?
I don't know. It's just a number that it has been trended forward since the time I've been at Rocky, and I don't know what the origin of it was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Do
I'm
you?
sure, no, I don't know exactly, but I'm sure that in some regard, it's based on the service they feel like they're getting as well as the population.
Right.
All of that. So a
Right.
lot more services are provided in Lewis and Clark County. We serve more
Absolutely.
people in Lewis and Clark County. There you do meals. You don't have all the full
No.
array of services in those
No.
counties.
We do
Here,
not.
all the list of things that you described in the beginning, you don't have all of those in these other counties. So
We-
they're paying,
We do have congregate meal sites and Meals on Wheels, but the number of individuals served is significantly less than it is here in Lewis and Clark County. And similarly, the transportation that we do here in Lewis and Clark and the senior space and services that we have available for activities, which again are listed in, and I can quickly find that page and read them off to you. We have exercise classes for seniors. It's on page 4 of the narrative document. Lots of pinochle and bridge players, line dancing a couple days a week, bingo on Wednesdays, wood carving on Thursdays, blood pressure checks. I think those are on Thursdays. Crafty quilters come in and they make all kinds of things that they donate to children and people in the hospital and people who need their quilts. We do occasionally do out of town trips, and then we have some education and community presentations. The senior center does have an advisory board that's composed of people that use the center. And they also do fundraisers and they pay dues to the senior center as well. So those are some other kind of smaller funding sources for those. So yeah, I appreciate Commissioner Hunthausen bringing up that. I just
it's not
kind of drew a
comparing
blank.
apples to apples.
No, it really isn't. The number of services is probably even a bigger factor than size to a degree. Size is definitely part of it, but.
Right. And then we do have Lincoln, Augusta,
Mhm.
Other places
Right.
in our county that, yeah.
Right, and in Broadwater County, they have one site in Townsend, and in Jefferson County, they have 2 sites. They have a site in Boulder and a site in Whitehall. The Boulder site only operates 2 days a week.
Yeah.
And that's basically been due to, it's shrunk over the last 10 years, mainly due to being able to staff it.
Oh,
We had a few really long time employees who cooked at the rural sites retire over the last few years. And I was actually quite surprised that we were able to replace full-time in Whitehall and Augusta. Because we've always struggled in Boulder to have somebody that would stay and that wanted to work full-time.
All right. Thank you. Well, any other questions, commissioners, or anything else that you would like to share with us?
Can I say one
Yeah.
thing?
Yeah, Kathy.
Just when you look at the fiscal cliff and proposed 27, Lori mentioned that I'd given her some information from a grant I'm writing. We're looking out there to see, we know we have a fiscal cliff and we don't want to let it just sit out there without working hard to make it right. So we've got one that will go out by the end of the month for $50,000 to Blue Cross Blue Shield. And we're looking for others to write grants like that. It's a little bit harder to write grants for, just general operating fund, but due to the increased numbers of seniors we expect in our county or in our state really, and then the increased costs, we think we can, go out there and hopefully be successful with a few grants too.
God, what a fabulous society we have. I mean, you look at these programs and we just did.
Yeah.
It's
really impressive. These folks do wonderful work.
not only them, but
So-
all of us, the taxpayers.
Oh, yeah.
We hear about people are raising hell about their property taxes going up. But for the most part, people don't. They want us to take care of our seniors. They want us to take care of the roads. They want us to take care of the mentally ill. So, and you guys make it possible.
Thank you. You do as well.
In the long term, we need to keep this around when Commissioner Hunthausen becomes of age. Because he's obviously the oldest of all of us.
That's right. I've been around the long.
He is not the oldest by a long shot. There's two of us in this panel of three that are older than the youngster here.
Yeah, so somebody just had a birthday. I don't know if we want to talk about that or not. Well, thank you very much. Again, this is, preliminary presentation, and no news is good news from us that what's on here now is likely to go forward unless you hear from Frank or someone like that, Frank or Misty.
Okay.
And we'll be in touch if there's further questions and all of that. And we just spend literally the next month, middle of June or to the end of June, kind of finalizing all of our budget stuff. And you'll hear the final news sometime at the end of that month, and we'll be ready for our final decisions. But thank you very much for
Well,
being here.
thank you. And you want us to hit the green button?
Just leave it green.
Okay.
And
Good.
we'll ask, because we need to do that, but it doesn't look like anyone's here. Was there any public comment related to this budget? Any public comment? Any public comment? Hearing none, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for the opportunity. We appreciate all of your support over the years.
Yeah, and all of your good work.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye. All right. We're looking next for Montana Business Assistance Connection, and they're scheduled for 1:30, which is about 2 or 3 minutes away. So we'll give them a minute to arrive. And until then, we'll take a little break. Thank you. Yeah, it's good stuff. Talked about having 7 properties, but those 7 properties are like representing a million units. So like, and, red.
Yep.
7 properties at Eagle Manor.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of them.
I'm picking up the blood after you guys tore her apart.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they represent a lot of units, don't they? All right, we just took a moment break. We'll continue on here. Are you ready, Nadine? All right, super. Welcome.
You guys want us?
Yeah, you can start heading this way. I'll do a little intro.
Might want to explain why we have to do it this way.
Yeah, I was gonna do a little intro now prior to you kicking off, but
No, you're not getting down there.
yeah. So we're going through our budgets like we do every year. We're doing it in this setting because it's not that we're trying to be more formal, but we're trying to tack on. We've been here since 9 o'clock this morning, essentially with a couple of breaks. We broke for lunch, but we're adding these on to our regular commission meetings because of efficiency. For one part, last session, the legislature also passed a bill that said anytime there's a quorum, we need to videotape those meetings and broadcast them, put them out online within 5 days. So we're kind of just getting in that mode. That law actually hasn't taken place yet, but we're doing it anyway.
Yep.
We're following it ahead of time, and we're practicing, I guess, if you will. So we would have had to do this in one of the conference rooms anyway. So we thought, hey, we'll just tack these on to our regular business meetings that we have and just keep going.
Right.
So that's where we are today. And this is no different than what we've done in the past. Just a preliminary budget presentation, how things are going. What are you up to? What do you plan on spending this next year? What are you asking for from us? And what have we done prior, essentially? And then to hear all the good highlights you've discovered this last year. So welcome. If you'd introduce yourselves for the record as you speak, that'd be great.
Perfect.
I'll turn it over to you, Brian.
I'll start. Brian Obert, Executive Director for Montana Business Assistance Connection. I think I'm actually going to have each of them introduce themselves also. More public speaking.
Yep. Good morning, Commissioners. Eric Seidensticker, SEIDENSTICKER, Program Director. Thanks.
Thank you.
Catherine Anderson, ANDERSON, and I'm in Community Development with MBAC.
Great, thank you.
So I think I'll cut right to the chase. Been a big year. We're kind of just trying to rotate everything over what you have done with us as membership in the past. I want to thank Tom for coming to our board meetings all the time. Again, economic development, we like to really talk about ourselves as being community and economic development. We do more than just gap financing. People either think of us going to public hearings and kind of doing public things or gap financing. We want to make sure everybody understands we do both. And a lot of it is to assist businesses in our community. Something you need to understand is we've over time have evolved into things that, I mean, we like to say that when we land with a mission. What you need to understand is sometimes we're always thinking of Frank. When we're doing things here, it's about taxable value. So if we can have a project that creates jobs and taxable value, we always see that as an important thing, because that's what keeps the garbage going the right direction, the bridges maintained and things like that. So we've had that philosophical conversation with Todd O'Hare with the state chamber. Our job is different than theirs because we are worried about how do we pay for things. So not just us, how do you pay for things? So again, I think it's been a big year for us. Tom probably hasn't quite heard it yet, but I'm going to be putting out an email here in the next day. Catherine and Eric were successful with another $500,000 through Community Development Block Grant Economic Development. We have talked about it at our board meetings. This one is for the old salt facility. Eric, might have you just mention that.
Yeah, thank you, commissioners. So we essentially tapped into the same program that we assisted High Country Snack Foods with about 5 years ago. It's the block grant program through Department of Commerce. We initially thought about going through the county, but the county had allocations already for the sponsorship from the local government. So that's why we wound up working with the city. But all the same, that was successful. We're working on getting that done. But that was kind of one of our first marquee projects, I think, of our Food and Ag Development Center that we were awarded a year ago. I think last time when we did this, we were in the process of applying for that, but we've added more programming, I think, is one of the big things. This Food and Ag Center is it's a contracted service through the Department of Ag to focus just on clientele that are in food and ag development. So this was our first new program, I think, in about 10 years. And anyway, we had been working with Cole, but it kind of just worked that it was a program that we could focus heavily on him with, and we've been pretty successful with it. I've talked to a ton of cattle producers, hobby farmers in the last year. So I think that's really important because we do have obviously the Helena Valley, but we have a whole other industry in the greater parts of the county that are doing ag production, manufacturing like that. So it's kind of a whole new ripple for us and meeting new folks and businesses. So I think we're getting out more into those rural kind of pockets of the county, which is really cool. So we're kind of balancing that out and putting it in with our existing programs. And it's just great also having the state as a good partner. So yeah, the old salt was a good project under that. But yeah, the new programming has been pretty impactful for some of these other longstanding industries. And I'm participating with the growth policy too, and that steering committee. And we're just looking at all these economic development factors. And one of them is our ag production in the county. So.
Thank you. I think that's a good point. That's something as an organization, we've always tried to manage our capability of being able to move the dial and our income capability at the same time. So for several years, we've been utilizing our other food and ag development centers in the state, whether it was Butte, Bozeman, or Great Falls, to do some of this work. And really what we have found is if you're not tied into the community, they will provide assistance, but it's not to the same level that we can do if we can do it internally. We will take it to a new level. And again, very specifically, these food and there's an example. So High Country Beef Jerky, that is a county, Lewis and Clark County CDBG Economic Development Fund. As the client pays that back, that goes into the Lewis and Clark County Revolving Loan Fund. If I'm a food and ag center from someplace else, they may not push that component very far. We want that capability of being able to rotate those dollars continually for the next 50 years within Lewis and Clark County. So when we do a CDBG ED, we then fence those businesses and that fund. So right now, to Eric's point, we could have used the county or the city for Old Salt. In this case, it made more sense to do the city. But just remember that your revolving loan fund is for all of the businesses within the county. When we do it within the city, we geofence that around the city. Again, we understand that they pay taxes also into the county, which helps to drive your general fund. So we always try to balance that. But that's something that we're always working on, is making sure that we not only can do work, but we have capital to be able to do that. So we do have a Broadwater County revolving loan fund, and we're working hard, hopefully with the mine starting up fairly soon, to be able to create a Mark County revolving loan fund. Now I'm going to go just slightly off topic. You can also do community development block grant, economic development for not-for-profits. And that's more of our community development side. And I don't know if you remember, but we also did a CDBG ED award for Florence Crittenden. And Catherine took the lead on that one. Again, in this case, it's not a revolving loan fund. It is a grant directly to the not-for-profit who is providing services that create a sense of place. And I do want you to know we were going to bring the CDBG application, but it is literally 1,000 pages long. So between what Catherine and Ann were doing, it's a monster of a document. We always keep a copy, not only digital, but a paper copy just for potential auditors and everything else. So again, as an organization, we're growing. We've went from when I've almost been doing this 20 years, and we were about $7 million back then. We're about $14 million now. Mark Menke, who has been doing our loan work for years, kind of took a portfolio that was struggling, and he has definitely turned it around, and we're just continuing to expand all the time. One thing that Eric didn't mention is we partner with our counterparts a lot. I mean, the food and ag was one of those. We felt it was time to bring that in, but on other projects, we do a lot of collaboration. We collaborate on brownfield projects all the time with our friends in Lewistown. One of those, I don't know if you've noticed, the Cenis auto wrecking facility is now for sale. We have a phase 1, phase 2 study from 12 years ago that Tetra Tech did for us, just looking at the environmental impact and that is present on those properties, and it's surprisingly less than you would think.
Good.
So there's, again, a little different than a chamber. They worry many times about a Memorial Day and 4th of July. We will take a longer time horizon. One of our brownfield projects, I know when Eric came on, we were still talking about it. We worked 15 years on an old gas station and finally got it demoed and cleaned up. It had been on the books with DEQ for 32 years. We could never get to the point where we could pull it off into no further action. We needed to demo the building, get to the core source material. We had to move the Broadwater County ambulance to a different building. We had to do a lot of work. But the moment we did that, the building next door sold. They've put over $1 million into that building because this eyesore on Main Street was gone. And 18 months later, that facility cleaned itself up and we have a no further action letter. It took us 17 years to get there. But I mean, those are the things, our time horizons are very different. Your money comes in and it really does help me pay payroll, which makes them do good deeds, which hopefully come back through taxable value, through the mill values for you to be able to do general fund work.
Thank you for that explanation and description.
Yeah, and just Catherine is working still with Ann and Florence Crittenden. I think we're getting pretty close to, that's one heck of a project.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been doing incredible things over there. Do you want to say anything about that?
Commissioners, I think Brian really touched on it. The CDBG ED grant to Florence Crittenden was really funding public good. We were there last week and they're doing the painting and kind of the final building and remodeling of their maternity wing. And so it's really great to see how those CDBG ED funds are being used. There's a lot of value in the work we do, a lot of value in those programs. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think just the last little thing, we try to dig money out from wherever we can. And Tom, I think you're aware that we've been working with the symphony now for a while, with the Masonic Temple. We just think when we were doing planning work with the city of Helena on the Cruz Avenue redevelopment, the architects really did say that we're missing this weird little spot. We've got this big building that the Masons control, the light and traction and the Ming, that could be an asset that just aren't being used as that. We've used multiple different funding. The first time around, it was Montana Main Street plus some TIF funding. We then leaned on friends at Montana DEQ, Department of Environmental Quality, and got $100,000 to do a continued study to turn that into a event space, not just for the symphony, but for many of the other organizations there. It's a big number. It's a big number that would do it right, but we now know what it could do for downtown Helena and really for attracting things into our community. So now we have to go after more funding to see if we can get there. But I mean, most people wouldn't have thought to use DEQ to do a design study for reuse of a 100-year-old building. We have our friends here in Helena. We keep our partners very close, and we were able to get that money put together. Any other questions for us? What we hope is our membership that you provide to us comes back 2 or 3-fold through improvements to taxable value. One of those being the new bottling plant here in town. It does have a tax abatement. Badlanders. That building and that equipment's going to be here for 50 years making money. So I mean, we've done a lot of work. We're saving them some money on their capital stack they put together. The tax abatement helps them get going. We're going to continue to lean on ownership of that because they would love to invest in a distillery somewhere. We would like to see it inside Lewis and Clark County.
Yes. Good. Commissioners, any questions for our friends from MB? Oh, Commissioner.
Yeah, it's just, amazing to see when I come to your meetings, what all you're getting done, and businesses that maybe are struggling, you're able to provide some assistance to keep them rolling, and keeping people hired. So thank you for what you're doing.
Yeah, Tom, to that point, the state of Montana called me today because they've got a business in a different area that had a SBA deal fall apart. And they call me to talk to Mark because they know he knows how to get things done. That just, I mean, I may have been here for a long time, but when we had 3 people, we did what we could do. I now have staff that gets things done. It's not me, it's the staff that's doing the work. I would like to say I just look good, but we know better than that, so.
Well, thank you. Any other questions?
Mr. Chair.
Oh, please. Yes, Frank. Or
Just a quick question on, I think you guys are involved with the airport authority expansion, or they're trying to expand at least 2 different routes, Dallas and Phoenix. Could you give a brief overview of those?
Yes. Access to other markets for people to be able to travel in and out of drives a lot of things. I'm glad you brought that up, is that what we have set up out here at the airport is, I mean, I think it's a unicorn, what we have created out there. And now when Idaho Falls is losing routes and losing airlines from coming into Idaho Falls or Twin Falls, Idaho Falls is doing well, Twin Falls is struggling. Helena is actually doing quite well. Now, the reason why we aren't even doing better has little to do with Helena. It has everything to do with the lack of airplanes and the lack of pilots. So we have been working very closely with the chamber and with Jeff out at the airport, really looking at how do we bring more potential flights that are directly into new markets, or flights that have a better time so citizens from the region, and this is a regional approach, can get to someplace so they can then get a connection that meets what they need. The idea that you may be able to fly out and have to spend the night in Denver to get in flight the next morning, or on the way back that you have to stay in Salt Lake to try to get back to Helena. So we're not only trying to bolster the existing routes, but actually find new routes. One of those recently is Breeze Airways, is trying to expand, Helena potentially being our location. We see this as being a very important one. We missed the ability to pull in Allegiance years ago. The pitch was, you have your airline in Helena, you determine how big the market is because of our central location, and then you can, over time, grow out to these other markets. They jumped beyond us, put in airlines and flights into Great Falls, Bozeman, Missoula. We'll never get Allegiant into Helena because they know our people will bleed into those other markets, which means we're losing the airfare, we're losing the parking, we're losing motel rates, restaurants, Costco visits. So we've really pivoted and tried to go after American and now Breeze because these are destinational locations and they get us into a new market. A direct flight from Helena into Sky Harbor, which isn't what Allegiant goes into, which then you have to try to get back to Sky Harbor to try to go anywhere. We think that Sky Harbor connection opens up a lot of opportunities. And if we can land it, it would be Helena. People from Missoula, Bozeman, Great Falls would come to Helena, spend their money here either before or after, as they were doing that cheap flight into Sky Harbor to either go see family and friends, go golfing, go to the baseball games, or to jump off to another location worldwide. So this is in the back room, in the back areas, trying to be very strategic on what we can do. The second flight with Alaska Airlines is a big deal. We think Breeze has a lot of upward mobility, Sky Harbor just being the first one. It could definitely become then LAX and Portland at some point in the future. That's the type of airline they are. American gets us down into Dallas, Fort Worth, which gets you any place else in the world right now. So both of those are very important. But to that same degree, we think the airport, just in nature, how you have set it up as having an airport that has leasable land, having Boeing, having Pioneer, having the Air Guard out there, that's a diamond in the rough. We think with the headwaters, the EDA, Economic Development Administration, Headwaters Tech Hub designation likely coming to Montana, we think Helena is in the running for some of the high-end machining type work, advanced manufacturing. You can't find, they'd love to be in Bozeman, but you can't find access to property. Property is very expensive. The homes are very expensive for the workers. We think Helena is in a very ripe spot to be able to take advantage of that. And those types of businesses would likely land out by the airport somewhere, either inside the airport authority or adjacent to it. So you will continue to hear us talk about the airport.
Great, thank you. Commissioner.
You and I had lunch with Jeff Wadecamper, and I went in there pretty skeptical and came away thinking, we should look at this. And I think I talked to Roger about possibly having you do a presentation at our regular county commission meeting so that all three of us could hear and we're not allowed to sit in a room and talk about things. So we do this only in this room. We can talk, but we hear each other's questions. And I was wondering, have you done any more on getting on our agenda?
We haven't yet because right now our focus has been Breeze, and I know Jeff has come a long ways. Now is our time to start to circle back around and close that loop because I think we're getting somewhere now, definitely. Okay. And we would love to have that partnership. I very specifically was meeting with a outside company last week that was looking at Montana. And site selectors have always been, what's the cheapest labor pool? Where can I get the best incentives? Most of those types of firms are not looking for that anymore. They're looking for, how do I fit into the community? Are we going to be welcomed? And this company specifically was asking, will we be welcomed by the city and the county if we were to come to this area? And having that relationship and having obviously a parent relationship is something they were very much looking for. So if nothing else, we need to have that meeting just to continue to embrace the fact that the airport and all of those activities, again, I think what has been put together from Ron Mercer before and Jeff now, it's a unicorn in the country for a airport to have that type of industrial space adjacent. And whether it's Breeze or anything else, we should have that conversation with this body.
Yes, I think we should.
We
as
will
you
make
said,
that happen.
That our unicorn, and I've had dealings with the airport through my previous life when I was an attorney. It pays its own way. And that is exactly the kind of project we're looking, I mean, whether it's the fairgrounds or the airport or whatever it is, if it'll pay for itself and the taxpayers, we don't have to add more burdens onto them. That's exactly what we want. And that's where I think this is going. And I want to encourage that. And so, you know.
Absolutely. I can't agree more. I mean, creating event space, creating public space that is nothing but a draw on the bottom line of everybody for years isn't in anybody's best interest. So whatever we're kind of working on, the symphony, this redevelopment, when the architects were saying, well, we can make it this, I mean, all of the oak and brass and everything else, Catherine is just being, no, we have to look at the pro forma for the facility. Can it cover itself? If it can't, we don't want to do that. And you don't want to get in front of her when she has her mind set up on something that needs to be done. So we take that not only with the airports. I mean, obviously, Mark Menke from our staff is on your county fairgrounds board. I mean, we see it. It has to be, we have to be as efficient as possible with any of our public activities as well as our private.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
if I could. Thanks a lot. So last year, you all handed out this comprehensive economic development strategy. Is this still a current document that the commissioners can look at? It's still relevant?
Is it
to the priorities that
5
you're
years?
working on?
5 years. And then
Right.
we do that every 5 years, and then we do an annual work plan update.
That's what I recall from
Yes.
last year. Just wanted to make sure. And just to be clear, commissioners, on the last page of what you have in front of you today, the request of you from MBAC is $25,000 for an membership fee.
Yes.
Yes.
In terms of just clarifying the budget request.
Yeah.
And what, I mean, same as we have done previous, we do still support what used to be procurement, technical assistance with PTAC. We've been covering that ourselves. We're now, continuing to work with the state of Montana to try to see if we can get some more partnerships. We have some federal funds that go through billings that then get spread out to practitioners who help businesses that are doing direct, contracting with city, county, state, and feds. We're trying to find a few more people to be able to push that together, and just literally had a meeting yesterday talking to the state about can they become a partner with it, because that's one of those things we see as important. It doesn't have as clear of a direct relationship to the community, but in a capital city, we have a lot of businesses that have contracts with the state, with the feds, and everything that's going on with the missile bases coming up. We just need to continue to have that support. If some of these programs, and I mean, obviously we see it right now with the kids going to college and when you have a computer system go down, things can get really quite bad. The SAM system, I'm assuming Frank has to work with the SAM system at the federal level. Oh my God, if you're not familiar with some of these online programs, it's brain damage. And having somebody just talk you through it, that this is the reason why they're asking for this information. This is what your EIN is. This is how you get it. Apex, which PTAC has now become Apex, having someone there to walk our local businesses through that, just to hold their hand. Because if you don't have it, you don't get the contract. So you have to be in SAM. You have to have your paperwork in order, making sure somebody is out there helping our businesses is important to us.
Thank you very much. Anything else from you fine folks,
The real workers.
the real workers?
I beg your pardon.
Thank you.
Just kidding.
Oh,
No,
Yeah,
this is
yeah,
great.
yes, exactly.
Brian, thank you very much for all of you do. Thank you. And to the board as well. Hey, he won't let any of us be on these.
Right. And I do have to just say, you have some of the best staff. I mean, Frank, Misty, Ann, and sometimes Tom. I mean, you guys do really well. So
Yeah.
it's easy here to get our job done.
Good. Well, thank you. Thanks for being great partners and bringing good projects forward to our community. So
We try.
yeah, it's great. Appreciate you being here. Okay.
Thank you.
And with that, as they're walking out, I'll ask for public comment. Any public comment on this particular budget presentation? There is no public here. So we will move on. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thanks for coming. Hi.
victim.
Well,
I was hiding out in the hall.
you can come in anytime. All these meetings are public, so.
Thank you.
Heck, yeah. So our next budget presentation is
CASA.
CASA, and you are supposed to begin at 2:00. So I'll just do a little bit of a preamble for you
Okay.
prior to you starting, why we're doing it here and all of that. Kind of told the others that we're doing it in this setting because we've tacked these on to our regular commission meetings, which actually started at 9:00 this morning. So we've been going for a while. We've been
Okay.
taking breaks, but we've been going for a while. But this is great. And we have to televise everything anyway. So we thought we'll just keep going and keep a good record of things. And you are our last one for today,
Oh,
2:00, and we're so happy here. So if you would, and again, today is just a preliminary budget presentation. We're just talking about our engagement with you and what the county's done with you in the past and what you're requesting going forward, all of that. Might answer questions for us, those kinds of things.
Sure.
And we'll have opportunity in the future for any more formal activity if we need it, but this might
Okay.
work for all of us. So if you'd introduce yourself for the record, I'll give you the floor and you take off.
My name is Tammy High. I am the executive director now of CASA. I was just named executive director back in October of last year. I am
Congratulations.
currently the only employee right now at CASA. So I have a lot on my shoulders right at the moment. We just, we did have a advocate supervisor that just left. So we are currently looking for a new advocate supervisor, which I stated in kind of my preamp too here. And our intern just left here as of last week. She had been with us for 2 years. And got accepted over to Missoula, one of 34 students into the grad program. And she is going to be a counselor for teenagers. So we were very gracious to have her for the 2 years out of Carroll College. Yep.
Excellent. Good. Okay.
Along with that, do you want me to go into our current numbers as of today or jump right into our budget?
Well, I think it'd be great to just get a little bit about how the year's gone and what the work that you've done this year, just a little bit of kind of an overview, and then you can jump into your budget.
Sure. Current numbers, year to date, we've had 112 kids in care. 76 of those children are served by our advocates. 25 of those, we've had those CASA advocates there with 33 active CASAs. 37 of those were without care. So some of those kids come and go with cases being dismissed and new kids coming in, of course. We've had 21 new children this year. 27 cases have closed. So the kids that don't have CASAs are served by CASA staff, being myself right now. Year to date, we've had over 75 volunteer hours with a dollar value of over $21,000, which is pretty extensive. Right to this day, we have 85 children in care. 73 of those are being served right now, with 86% of those kids being served, which is fantastic. It's the most we have ever had.
ever in history of CASA
Wow.
being served. Some of those are already on trial home visits with their parents or going to guardianship. So it has historically improved over the years. And a lot of that is due to you guys with your funding, helping us get that word out and keeping the good motivation going. So we thank you for that. Even though numbers are down, we still see those cases, you know, trending, coming and going throughout, you know, throughout the years. We see some return cases. So we try to put the CASAs with return cases back on those same cases to help, because the kids are familiar with those CASAs that we have for sure. So as you can see, you know, through the stats that cases are down through the year from last year, you know, to this year. And historically they have declined, but the cases we are seeing are a little bit more severe than the ones we've seen in the past, so. A good portion of our funding does come not only from you all through our VOCA grant, as you can see through our budget. We did get that second year that we were not sure we were going to see last year when we talked to you, but we did get that second year of VOCA grant, which I stated on our budget there, along with Supreme Court. We will not know that one until July, which what they do with Supreme Court is they take all of the CASAs throughout Montana, which is 15 of them, and they take all of our numbers. And then that's how they determine how much each program gets on a quarterly basis for that amount. And that money comes in quarterly along with the VOCA one.
Okay, good.
Any questions on that portion of it?
Mr. Chair. Could I please?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Yes, of course.
Just, I was just looking at last year and just a question.
Of course.
So last year, it looks like you had a revenue source, a grant from the city of Helena in the amount of $2,000. But I was just looking on your sheet here. It does not appear that there's any revenue coming from the city of Helena for you this year. Just a question. Has that grant gone away from the city?
Yes, that was a one-time
It
grant.
was a one-time on?
Yes,
Thank you.
of course. Everything else through this upcoming year is pretty consistent. Some of the stuff we adjusted one way or the other by about 3% is how we did it historically. You know, like child's needs is down a little bit just because our caseload is down. So we adjust things based on that.
Sure.
Is how we do it throughout our budget.
But your inflationary factors, 3% is what you said?
Yeah, 3%. Yep. Yep.
Questions, commissioners, for CASA? Frank, anything you want to add that in here?
Nothing, or just thanks for supplying the budget.
Yeah.
And putting it together for us.
Of
And
course, absolutely.
it's a lot of work, especially it sounds like you're doing a lot of work on your own, and I
Yes,
appreciate you putting this together. And
thank you.
You know, you have a balanced budget, so
Yeah.
congrats.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a lot more to it than when I first started 18
Yeah.
years ago. So you're really
Yeah.
doing a lot more.
Yeah, we're thriving to get to that 100% mark with the
Yeah.
kids by the end of the year, which I think we can do.
It's great.
We're having our trainings quarterly. We have a class going right now that has 4 new students in it. So quarterly, we're doing trainings to kind of offset. We've had some CASAs that, you know, have been with us for 10 years or better that have retired, which understandably so. So we're trying to kind of keep that balance with the advocates, the ones that are leaving and new ones coming in,
Sure.
because it does take a toll, obviously, you know, so we're keeping that balance with new
Good.
ones
Do you
coming
have a
in,
question?
for sure, yes.
I have a question in the actual budget sheet, in the revenues, in the 4,100 grants, and over in the far right-hand column, then some of them say not secure, and one says secure. And so What's the difference between the revenue that is not secure? For example, $31,820 from Lewis and Clark County.
That is you all, which we don't
Yes.
know that we get for sure. So we always put not secure on the ones that we're not sure we're going to get. Or
So what is the one that is secure?
that is the VOCA grant, the Victims of Crime Act that we have secured, that we
VOCA.
know that we have for sure.
I just FYI, I don't do very well with FTLAs.
I am the same way. That was the
So-
hardest thing I had to learn when I come on at CASA was the acronyms.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So the non-secure just means that annually you have to go ask for it. And you
Yep.
don't know if you're gonna, for sure, if you're gonna get it or not. You're hoping and you're assuming, but you're
Yep.
not, it's not
Absolutely.
guaranteed. Right, great, thank you. Anything else for anyone?
You know,
Yes, ma'am.
I was at CASA for a while. They said I was too rigid. I did not deal well with mothers lying to me, fathers lying to me, and then the little kids following their mom and daddy's footsteps. And they lied to me too. And it was pretty black and white that this was.
Absolutely.
So I was told by the people in charge at CASA that this was probably not a good fit for me.
See, and I wish she would come back. We have one CASA that I put her on my hard cases because I know that she can see through all of that nonsense that can get through to some of the parents that we need just some of that hard love. And it just takes that one person to make a difference in somebody's life to change it around. And we just got a case that the kids are going home actually this week, that a mom has not been sober since she's 14 and she's 34, and those kids get to finally go home. So it makes a difference.
Yep.
The CASA made the difference.
Yes,
So it's amazing.
it is amazing.
I took on this other job instead.
So yeah. Yep, absolutely understand it all.
All right, well, thank you so much.
Perfect. Thanks for having me today.
Yes.
I appreciate
thank you
it.
for the
Appreciate your
presentation.
time.
And Frank will be in touch. And as we go through our budget process, it usually takes the next couple of months here of all of our processing of
Okay,
budget stuff. So you'll find out the final things, but no news is good news in general.
perfect. I like it. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you very much. Okay. And if there's any public comment on this item, I have to ask for public comment. There's no public in the room.
Okay.
So thank you very much.
All right.
We will move on.
Thank you.
And I'm gonna now, I guess that's the end of our formal agenda, isn't it?
Excellent. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, Mr. Chair,
So, yes, sir.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
I was just gonna take a public comment on anything but before we do that, let's talk about any other.
So thanks, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to mention that we have our joint meeting with the city of Helena beginning at 3:00 this afternoon, where we'll
Right.
be jumping into those joint budgets. And commissioners, you should have a packet with all of the backup information in it for that meeting that looks something like this. And it might be valuable for you to bring it to the meeting. And just to summarize today, commissioners, thank you very much. So I just wanted to summarize from RMDC. You heard a request for a 3.5% increase to a total of just over $412,000 for their budget. And to summarize from MBAC, their request was for a membership fee of $25,000. So I just had an opportunity to do a quick check. That is a $5,000 increase from what they requested last year. So just a summary for you. You'll be seeing all of this again as we finalize our budgets. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And Frank, CASA brought forward a 3% inflationary factor, but that's different than ours, right? Essentially,
Yeah,
I
we've
guess
been using the 3.5.
3.5. So that may be an adjustment we want to make. Just to be consistent across the board, so we're not treating people differently. Yeah, thank you very much. Anything else, commissioners? How about public comment on any item that is under the jurisdiction of the commission but not on today's agenda? Any public comment? Any public? Seeing no public come forward, we will stand adjourned. Thank you all very much.